The main character didn't understand why the child was alone in the forest. The boy was calling and looking for his little brother. Normally, the girl would ask if he was lost and looking for his parents and would help the child find them. But this time, she couldn't do anything because he was covered in blood from head to toe. She saw his coat of arms. Besides, this bloody child should never have appeared here. Never. It all happened 3 years ago when she was obsessed with a novel called I Am the Duke's Contracted Wife. She knows that truck, she's seen it many times before. A tragic accident that often appears in romantic fantasy novels. This is how the main character's life ended in Korea. And the girl's soul moved to another dimension, to the body of the young daughter of a village baron. She didn't realize it right away, because the Charlotte Lania she became was never mentioned in the original novel, only in the extra chapters where she appeared for a moment. But Charlotte did not appear in the main story. She is a simple aristocrat. The main character considered herself very lucky. Becoming the main female character seemed to doom herself to suffering through all sorts of relationships, cunning schemes, and love intrigues. Don't be like that. A villain who torments the main character, or just a secondary hero. Such characters are constantly given death, the finale. But that won't happen. So getting into this body is a divine success. The main character thought so, but she just found the main male character's younger brother. The boy looked at her and started crying loudly and calling for his brother. The girl asked the boy if he was okay. She asked where his brother had gone. The kid said he didn't know. Suddenly, a man ran up from behind. He called out to the lady and asked where she had gone alone. The man came closer and asked what kind of blood it was. The main character said to calm down because she doesn't think it's his blood. Apparently the knight accompanying the child is injured. She told Sir Caesar that it seemed his brother was somewhere nearby and asked him to search the forest. The man understood his mistress. The girl believed that she could not have known about this coat of arms. She was sure that it was the coat of arms of the Duke of Keinstva. But she did not understand why this child was in such a state so far away in the wilderness. She said everything was fine and asked if he was scared. A servant came up to her and said that it looked like they had been attacked. The girl asked again. One of them looked like a person from the house of Heinst, and there were 4 more bodies lying nearby in black cloaks. They looked like murderers. And then she realized that this was an assassination attempt. It was an attempt on Theodor Heinst. She remembered that she had completely forgotten the original story. The novel begins with the main character crying at the funeral of his younger brother, and she promises to take revenge on whoever dared to do it. Just think that the assassination attempt took place here, and the main character didn't know what to do. The main character mercilessly killed everyone involved, and if it happens again, we need to make it clear to him that their family has no business here. Otherwise, they will not be able to escape death. She turned to Sir Caesar and said that she would return to the manor with this child and asked him to prepare everything. The maids asked the lady what was happening and who the child was and what was in the blood. They had to call a doctor quickly. The main character said that it wasn't hers or his blood, so they should calm down, but just in case it's better to call a doctor. They agreed, but asked to wait a second. The girl asked where her mother and nanny were. The maid said they were in the backyard. The girl said that this child would stay with them for a while, so they had to provide for everyone. The maids understood everything. The main character was walking with the child and thinking about how to explain everything to her mother. If they did something wrong, their family would be destroyed. Mom asked Charlotte how her walk was. The maid asked what happened. Mom was shocked and asked whose blood it was. Charlotte said it was okay, because she was okay. But she needed to say something. Mom was shocked that something like this had happened in their forest. The lady ordered that a message be sent to Duke Haynes first, and until his arrival, the child should be protected. The servant said that they would do so. Milady said that she would ask Sir Caesar to investigate what happened, because they needed to prove to the Duke that they were not involved in this. It's a pity that her brother and father are away now. Once they've left the estate, she'll take care of everything. Mother said that if she wants it, she'll leave everything to her. And yet the child is probably shocked. Mom said she would tell the kitchen to prepare sweets for him and decorate the guest room. The maid said she would take the young gentleman to bed. Charlotte was grateful to the nurse. Her aunt said she would take good care of the child, and she asked me not to worry and to mind my own business. When she met this child, she could not even imagine that her life would be turned upside down. Absolutely not. The man told the gentleman that they were continuing their search. The gentleman said they would find Theo at any cost. He didn't care what it took. The master had sworn to their dead parents that he would take care of Theo. He didn't understand where he was. Now he understood that he shouldn't have let him go alone. And then a servant ran into the room. He announced that a letter had arrived addressed to the Duke. It was a letter from Charlotte. She wrote that she was from the barony of Lanaya in the southern part of the empire. She wanted to tell him something, so she plucked up the courage to write. The Duke ordered the servant to wait for him at the gate because they were leaving for Lania's estate now. Sir Caesar told the lady that they had dealt with the bodies found in the forest. Charlotte asked if there was any sign of those who had escaped, but he denied it. Charlotte thought it was strange. According to the original, Theo was supposed to die there, but there is no sign of anyone escaping, so none of the killers were running or giving chase. Then it was unclear how they died. The man said that there was another strange thing. The reason for the death of the guard. They were not murderers. The lady did not understand what he was talking about. There was no fatal wound. There was simply no reason to die. But there were traces of manna around what had happened. Charlotte wondered if he meant to say a magician was involved. Sir said it was Charlotte thought, because the situation was worse than she thought. If it was a bladed assassin, Sir Caesar would have dealt with him. But if it's a magician, it'll be problematic. Charlotte ordered a patrol to be posted in this area. The man understood. She also ordered a magician to be summoned from the neighboring estate. Caesar was surprised that it was so sudden. He thought they were planning to increase expenses. The man said that hiring a magician was very expensive. Charlotte knew that their family wouldn't have enough money, but she told him not to worry because she had an idea. The girl got the jewelry. She told Caesar to sell it and hire a magician. The man asked if the jewelry was too expensive for her. The lady said that they were important because it was a coming-of-age gift from her parents, but she was ready to give it away because her family and her estate are more precious to her. And then Charlotte heard the boy screaming. She ran into his room and asked the nurse what was happening. Theo was calling his little sister, and when he saw Charlotte, he ran towards her. The nanny said she was trying to bathe the young gentleman, but it seemed he was hiding his face. The boy was screaming that Theo was scared. He was screaming at his sister that he didn't want this. Charlotte took him in her arms and said that it was okay because his sister was with him now. Charlotte told the nurse that she would help. The girl was buying the boy, and while doing so, she noticed a mark on his little back. Charlotte asked him to read a book about the times when the great wizard William lived. He had a dearest friend, Selina. The boy said, "Madam." Charlotte thought it was cute. Together they went to fight the terrible dragon. But one day, Selina disappeared without a trace. William traveled all over the world in search of her, but Selina was nowhere to be found. The main character noticed that the story was a bit cruel. She was already starting to think that she probably shouldn't read it to a child. William, who had lost his dear friend, gradually went mad. Soon he fell ill. Many doctors examined him, but none could make a diagnosis. Selina returned upon hearing the news, but it was too late. William was getting worse and worse. The doctors said he wouldn't survive the night. Sadness overwhelmed Selina. She hugged William and sobbed. And at that moment, Selina's tears shone, touching William's cheek. The light spread throughout his body, and when the glow faded, William came to himself, healthy as before. The rest of his life, they lived happily together. Charlotte thought it was a very wonderful story. Theo was already asleep. She stroked him because he was cute. She was lucky to meet him then, saving such a wonderful child. She couldn't believe that something like this didn't only happen in fairy tales. She was a little worried and assumed it was because she saved him. No wonder he didn't want anyone to bathe him. After all, this estate is full of people he doesn't know. Come to think of it, the drawing on his back. It seemed to her that people from the Hainst family had such marks on their bodies. Someone knocked, and Charlotte did not understand who it was at such an hour. She looked out and saw the maid there, looking agitated. Charlotte asked what had happened. The maid was telling the lady that she had to go downstairs. Viscount Rothan arrived. Charlotte was shocked. The maid said that he had also set up a scene on the first floor. He seemed drunk, but Caesar was not at the estate at the moment. Charlotte heard him shouting something. The girl said she understood and would come down now. Meanwhile, the baby started to wake up and didn't understand where his sister was. He got out of bed and called his sister. Meanwhile, Charlotte was leaving and didn't understand why he decided to make a scene at such an hour. The man asked if it was difficult for her to just see him. He asked if she had thought about her proposal. Charlotte said she had not yet decided. The man did not understand what to think about at all. The Viscount said that if she accepted his proposal, she would become the Viscount's wife, and would also be able to say goodbye to the debts for the territory of Lania. Charlotte said not to worry, because she would cry herself to tears with everyone in time, and even if she couldn't. The girl said that she would never become his wife, the wife of Viscount Roten, because she still had her head on her shoulders and had no reason to marry him. The Viscount asked her what she had said. He thought it was arrogance and began to attack the lady. Charlotte decided that he could beat her as long as she could find out his weaknesses. And then the little boy ran up and stood in front of Charlotte and told the Viscount not to bully his little sister. The man didn't understand who this child imagined himself to be, and the boy shouted at the bad uncle to go away. The man didn't understand what was happening. Charlotte herself didn't understand what was happening. Her husband's arm started to hurt, and he told her that he wouldn't forgive her for what happened today. He asked her to wait, because there were only 2 days left. The Viscount said that if she didn't pay in 2 days, he wouldn't just leave it. When he left, Charlotte fell to her knees in horror. A boy came up to her and asked his sister if she was okay. Charlotte asked why he was here. She thought he was sleeping. Theo said he missed her. She asked him again, and the boy said that he was always bored when she was not around. Charlotte kissed him and said that he had a strange ability. Theo asked again. Charlotte said that it was because when he smiled, all her worries just disappeared. The lady called the baby to the crib because he was probably tired. Theo agreed and was already reaching for it, but immediately let go of it and began to fall. Charlotte blamed herself for everything she believed that she should have watched him more closely. The maid asked her not to speak to her like that and asked her to go to her room and rest, because she can take care of the baby herself. The doctor said that he could not find out the reason for the loss of consciousness. The nanny came up to her crying. Charlotte was terrified and asked the nurse what had happened. She didn't know what to do because he wasn't getting any better. He was getting worse. Someone even said that it would be difficult for him to survive the night. Because it is a high fever, the treatment will have consequences. The lady ran to the boy. His whole body was burning. She told him to get well and play with her tomorrow, hoping he would hear her. She said they would go to the garden and play on the ground, and then look after the kittens. She apologized and said she should have spent more time with him. The boy woke up and called his sister Charlotte, said she was here. The boy asked where she was going, but the girl said she wasn't going anywhere else. Theo asked Charlotte not to cry. He asked her if that big bad uncle would come back. Charlotte hugged the boy in tears and said that he would not come again and asked her not to worry about him. The boy told her he would protect her. Charlotte told her brother that he didn't need to look after her because she would protect him. It was already difficult for him to survive, and it is unclear why he has to go through this. Why the incapable main character ended up next to him. The girl went to bed with Theo. She didn't even notice she fell asleep. The girl couldn't understand why she felt tired and sleepy right after going to sleep. Charlotte felt her little brother and noticed that he was feeling better. Not immediately, but the medicine must have worked. This news greatly comforted Charlotte. Theo woke up. Charlotte said she was here and asked him if he was feeling better and if he was in pain. The boy said, pudding. The main character didn't understand at first and asked again. The kid said he wanted pudding. The sister agreed that they should go eat pudding, and then they would look at the kittens. Everyone was shocked that the boy had gotten so much better, and it was completely incomprehensible how this was possible. The doctor said that the ladies had already said that he was so sick that the medicine must have left its effects. However, he was completely fine. It was the first time he had seen such a thing. A maid ran to Charlotte and said that they had a problem because the Duke of Heinst had arrived. The man looked very angry. Theo asked his sister if she was in pain. Charlotte said she was fine, just a little worried. The nurse came up to them and told the lady that she had better go to her room and leave everything to them. Charlotte said that she could not, because her father was not at the estate, and she had to be present on his behalf. Charlotte told the nanny not to worry. Everything would be fine, and she went downstairs with the baby in her arms. Theo saw his brother. The main character realized that if the boy calls him brother, then this man is the second son of Duke Heinst Carlisle Heinste. The girl handed the boy over to the Duke's son, who kissed him. The little boy asked him where he had been, for he was very frightened. Charlotte noticed that he looked tired and thought he was in a lot of pain. She remembered him as ruthless, but she was beginning to have doubts. Theo said that his sister gave him pudding and played with him. Looking into those eyes, she realized that the description in the short story was not lying. Carlisle H. A. Inst, Wild Wolf. The main character greeted the Duke and introduced herself as Charlotte Lanaya. She hoped that he would see his brother's safety and not blame them. After all, this issue concerns her territory, and she needed to make sure of everything. She prayed that he would just let them go. Carlisle thanked her for taking care of Theo. He said that their family would never forget it and would definitely repay them. Charlotte began to say that nothing was necessary, and she promised to help him with the investigation. The man was grateful for the help. The Duke called his brother home. Theo asked if his sister would come with them. Charlotte asked again, and the boy said that he liked her very much and invited her with them. Carlisle told the boy that it would be just the two of them, and his sister lived here, and this was her home. The boy said that then he wouldn't go either and would live here. The Duke told his brother that he couldn't, but the boy started throwing tantrums and screaming that he didn't want to go and wouldn't go anywhere. He told his brother that he hated him. The little boy started reaching for his sister, but Charlotte told him to go home. Theo started screaming that he hated both his brother and his sister. Carlisle tried to calm Theo down. Something strange was happening, and Charlotte ordered a doctor to be called quickly. She grabbed Theo and asked him to breathe. Her hands began to glow as she hugged Theo. The Duke grabbed her hand, and the girl had no idea what he was doing. The main character decided that she had failed. Her hands were glowing when she hugged Theo. And when Carlisle took her hand, it was unclear what it was. Anyway, it's good that Theo is okay. She thought that was in the novel, but obviously something is wrong. When she first got here, she could remember. The Duke asked if he could come in. Charlotte said Theo was asleep, and the doctor had taken care of everything. There was nothing to worry about. Nothing would happen. Fortunately, he avoided death. The doctor says that, thanks to her. Well, he doesn't understand Charlotte. The main character became curious about why he was looking at her like that. Charlotte said that if he wanted to ask about that light, she couldn't answer, because she didn't know anything herself. The man asked if she knew anything about the person he was looking for. At that moment, she could feel it. This is an extraordinary state, such a dangerous signal that it could change the original. The novella takes place in a magical world. Mages use innate mana to cast spells, which is difficult, so you must first learn to control your mana. But there is a minority who are capable of this spell. They are called Rosetto. They inherited the blood of the first incredibly powerful generation of magicians, so they could be stunned. But they had a fatal flaw. Their mana would explode if they were not properly trained. This caused their body temperature to rise, and if they made a mistake, they would die. Like a time bomb, like Theo. Now the main character understands, although she still has doubts. If Theo is Rosetto, then everything falls into place. There were no traces of magic on the dead, probably because Theo's mana exploded. The pattern on his back is Rosetto's symbol. I didn't believe she could be the right person. The need for Rosetto is not able to control mana. There are too many coincidences to deny. They didn't let him live in peace, and they also dragged the main character into problems. The Duke said that based on what he had seen, Charlotte was the right person, so he wanted to make a suggestion. She asked again. Until Theo learned to control mana, he asked her if she would become the Duchess of Heinste. At night, the main character thought about it. She didn't understand who she was to become a duchess. She told Carlisle that if she had to live with a baby, she could become a teacher. Carlisle said that her words made sense, but a teacher could not walk with the Knights of Heinste. Charlotte mentioned that Theo was attacked, and she can't know when it will happen again. The right person is hard to find, so the Duke thinks she's the perfect choice. The Duke said it was better to understand. Charlotte said it was the first time they had met, and it was unclear what others would think. The man said that as long as she was the Duchess, she could do whatever she wanted, and if she didn't help, Theo's mana might explode again. So he asks her to agree. Carlisle said he would pay a fair price. Charlotte asked him to give her time to think. He agreed and said that during this time, he would draw up a contract and asks her to think everything over. Charlotte Lania and Carlisle Hinst a contract for 5 years. Carlisle Hinst would pay Charlotte Lania 50,000 zlotys in bars every year. She wondered about the scale of these payments. Even after paying off the debt to Viscount Roten, she would still have 45,000 ingots left. But even without the debt, this money would help people live in comfort. Charlotte Lania and Carlisle Hinst will live as a married couple for the duration of the contract. In addition, Charlotte Lania must take care of Theodore Hinst. Even if it's a contract, Theo is the most important. If his mana explodes again, Theo was saying something to his sister. He opened his eyes. The girl apologized for waking her up. The girl asked him why he wasn't sleeping, jokingly, asking if he was having nightmares. Charlotte said she was having such terrible dreams that she couldn't sleep. Theo told her not to be afraid because he would protect her. He was there so there would be no more nightmares. In any case, it seems like she had the answer to this proposal from the very beginning. The Duke asked her if she had made up her mind. Charlotte said yes, and they would sign the contract. Carlisle could see that she had made the right decision, but she has a few conditions. The Duke asked what she was talking about. First, she doesn't want to get married. Carlisle asked what that meant. It's quite intriguing whether she will sign the contract without a wedding. Charlotte said they will start with an engagement. The Duke was shocked. Charlotte told him to think for himself, that their families had never been in contact before. And everyone would definitely think that was strange. So we need to start with the engagement, and then play the wedding. The husband agreed, but said that they would not postpone anything, and he knows that the duration of the engagement is a year. She knew this, but she believed that when he passed, he would no longer need her, because the main character of the novel, Penelope, would appear. As she remembers, she will appear 6 months after the attack on Theo. They will meet at a banquet held in the palace. Penelope will stumble and fall into his arms, and inside Carlisle, everything will shrink. Before that, he suffered because of the loss of Theo. He suffered because he was Rosetto. If Carlisle had only known that Rosetto was there, it might not have hurt so much. The Duke took her hand and asked if she was listening to him. The girl apologized, said she had been thinking for a while. The Duke said that the engagement would last a year, and then they would get married the following autumn. Charlotte agreed and asked if she could add one more point. If the need for V-contact disappears, it can be terminated immediately. Carlisle agreed to this, and they dared to sign it. Charlotte said she would now think about how to tell her parents. Her father would arrive tonight. The Duke hoped that the news of the engagement would make him happy. Charlotte said that, unfortunately, her father has no desire for power because he loves her more than anything in the world. So it will take some convincing. The girl asked the Duke 2 years ago if he had been to the national founding ceremony. Carlisle asked again. Charlotte said that 2 years ago she had gone to the capital, and the ceremony was taking place there, so she attended the festival, and it seemed to her that they met then. We met by chance, looked at each other, and without saying a word we parted ways. And when he left, you dropped the thing she had kept. This time, when he came for Theo, Charlotte realized he was the same person. The Duke said that the national founding ceremony was indeed. He placed a necklace on the table and said that he had been wearing it since childhood, but no one knew about its existence except him. The second part got lost 2 years ago. It was great because the 2 parts fit perfectly. Charlotte asked to take care of it and promised to do her best. Charlotte went to her father, and he was very glad to see her. She thought he was very tired. Papa said he would soon settle the dirty Viscount's debts, and he won't get her anymore. The same Viscount burst into the room. He asked if he was talking about him. The Viscount just wanted to miss the Lania family, but he hears this. The man asked if Charlotte's father had the money ready. He wanted the man to pay quickly before the debt grew. And then the father said that he had prepared the money, a loan of 5,500%, a total of 5,500,000 gold bars. The Viscount was shocked and did not understand how he was able to collect so much in a couple of days. Charlotte was happy and said that she had promised to pay. At Charlotte's suggestion, her father found minerals in the south invested, and behold, the dividends came. The man said that once he got the money, he could no longer cling to his daughter. The Viscount tore up the check. The father simply didn't understand what he was doing. The Viscount shouted that he could no longer bear it because some baroness dared to look down on him. He had abandoned Charlotte's father. He yelled at Charlotte and her father, saying that earning so much money in such a short time was crazy, and they couldn't fool him. As the Viscount shouted that he would not leave it at all. The Duke burst into the room and asked what he was doing and how he dared to address his bride in that way. The Viscount asked again, with a trembling voice. Charlotte told the Duke that he could not say that the father was in complete shock and asked his daughter what the bride meant. Charlotte looked at the Duke, and he stood there with a blank expression on his face. She just wanted to die of shame. Carlyle had been wondering since yesterday why everyone was looking at him like that. He turned to Chase and asked why he was looking at him like that. The servant apologized and said it was impressive to see how quickly he had adapted to the Lanius estate. He was his assistant, but he had arrived late and was ashamed of it. But luckily, the Duke had managed it. Carlyle asked if that was all the information from the investigation into the Baron's family. The servant confirmed it and added that there was nothing special in it. At first, they are a poor family in a deserted village, and the most important thing is that Baron Lania loves his daughter very much. The father asked if they had really met in the capital. Charlotte asked if he remembered her talking about the necklace earlier. The Duke had a significant other. The Baron asked Duke Heinst if these feelings were sincere, and if he was sure that this was not fleeting love. The Duke said that it was definitely sincere, and he needs his daughter, and he won't let her regret her decision. Dad asked Charlotte if she was sure she wouldn't regret it. Charlotte said there was no way. Never father said he was in a hurry. As he said, Carlyle said that, without Mrs. Theo, she would be in danger. And he doesn't understand the rush. They still don't know who's behind this attempt. His father said that a wedding is an important process, and you can't decide everything so quickly. Even if they are involved, it doesn't matter. He will be able to keep Lania with him and eventually conquer her. But he doesn't understand something about the sapphire necklace, the same amount they gave to hire the mages. The Duke said he heard that Lania was in debt to Viscount Roten. They could pay it all off with that necklace, and it is not clear why they did not do this. The servant said that the maid said that the gentleman wanted to do so, but the Baroness refused hers. Apparently, this jewel is passed down at a coming-of-age ceremony. The lady must have held it in high regard, and they sold it for the sake of a random child and dead knights. The Duke ordered to find it the same jewel with sapphires. Right now. The servant was in complete shock, but began to carry out the order. Charlotte said the Duke was special. She spoke as if there was nothing to be afraid of. Her eyes were so innocent. A girl who would give up something dear to her for the sake of a child. A girl who had no reason to participate in the assassination attempt. The Duke believed that this could not be the case, because he had already thought everything through. Carlyle thought that when he found his brother, the pain would stop. The pain had stopped once the day he had grabbed her hand. In those few seconds, he felt incredibly relieved. And it's clear why Theo felt better, but it's unclear why he did too. The Duke heard his brother's voice saying something about his sister's flowers. He looked out the window and saw Charlotte playing with Theo. The lady asked the boy for his hand and said she would make him a bracelet. Theo asked again. The little one saw his brother and started waving at him. Carlyle heard strange noises and suddenly saw a flower pot fall on his little brother. But Charlotte rushed to save him. The girl covered little Theo with her. The vase fell right on top of her. The Duke was already there, and he grabbed Charlotte into his arms. The man ordered a doctor to be called. The main character woke up already in bed. The boy asked his sister if she was in pain. Charlotte thought she had passed out immediately after the impact. Theo said that when they were treating the wound, she seemed to be in a lot of pain. The girl told the boy that everything was fine. Theo asked for no more pain. The main character didn't understand why he was so cute. In fact, while Charlotte was being treated, the Duke held her hand. Carlyle said that they should hold hands until the treatment was over. He was very grateful to her for saving his brother, and said that he was wondering if it would be better to leave for the capital soon, so he asked her to prepare to send him a. The main character was shocked that he was worried about her, but she denied it because she thought that he probably wanted to take the boy to a safe place. Theo asked her sister why she was laughing, and she said it was because the pain went away. As soon as he blew, Charlotte said he was the best. They hugged each other sweetly. The maids had already prepared everything, and it was time to leave. The main character understood that she would return in 6 months. Charlotte didn't understand why she felt so unsure. The girl began to convince herself that everything would be okay, and she could. The mother hugged her daughter and asked her to be more careful on the road. The father told her to come back whenever she wanted, because her happiness was the most important thing in the world. Charlotte told her parents to take care of themselves too. When she turned back, she saw her mother crying, and it made her shed a tear. Opening the door, she saw the Duke, his little brother, and his assistant before her. The boy was very happy because they were riding together. The assistant said he wanted to give her something before she left. Charlotte asked if it was the same jewelry she had hired the magician for. The Duke said they found it for her. It was these jewels that allowed her to live as Charlotte Lania. She thought she would never see them again. The girl was very grateful. Carlyle said he had done what he had to. Charlotte was very grateful and said she was not very expensive. The assistant announced that it was time to leave. Theo asked Charlotte if she was coming to see him and was glad that they would live together. Although life in the capital may not be so peaceful, she will always have a family to return to, and Charlotte will definitely return. So that it doesn't happen, the main character thought about it and decided that something was wrong. The pot suddenly fell on Theo's head, and when he started eating the cookies, he almost choked. These events were very strange. Charlotte didn't understand why these things kept happening to Theo. She thought it was because he was supposed to die, but he survived. Because she saved him, after all. In the original, he died. Because of this, Charlotte assumed that this was happening to him because of her, because his fate had deviated from the original. Charlotte decided she couldn't let him die. He's usually a child who dreams of tomorrow. Theo is the Duke's wake-up toy. Carlyle told the lady that they had arrived. Charlotte began to wake her brother and tell him that they were home. Carlyle said he would carry him, but the little boy refused and said he would go with his sister. Charlotte believed that the Duke truly loved his younger brother. They approached the Manor Gate. The Duke told the girl to take his hand, just in case she and Theo got lost. The main character decided that there was nothing wrong with holding his hand for a moment. Now everything has officially begun. Time to dive into the original story. The little boy was showing his sister his room. Charlotte said it was a very nice room, and the boy said to wait a second because he wanted to give her something. Theo brought Charlotte a teddy bear. The main character was surprised because the Duke's family would not have bought such an ordinary toy. Charlotte said she must have seen that bear somewhere before Theo said his brother had given it to him. It looked familiar, but she still hesitated. As a result, the main character decided that all bears are the same. Charlotte was greeted by Ain. The girl did not know who he was, and he introduced himself as a magician from the Hainst family. He said he was told she was hurt and wanted to take a look. When he looked, he said it looked painful. The magician Ain cured her and said that everything was ready. Charlotte was very happy and very grateful to him for that. At the same time, the man asked the boy if he was in pain anywhere. Theo denied it with a smile. Ain noticed that it was all thanks to the lady. Charlotte thought he already knew she was a good person. That would be great, keep it up. The young lady asked if she could be taught to control mana. But this surprised the magician, and he asked again. The girl confirmed her question. Charlotte knew he was someone who could stabilize mana. She had no desire to become a mage, but she wondered if there was a way to harness her power. The main character definitely remembers from the original novel how Penelope gathered her power and turned it into a magic stone. Carlyle will be fine with it, even being far away from her. But no one knows if she will succeed. The magician thought about gathering power into a magic stone. If he did so, the Lord would be safe even without the lady. The magician suggested trying it. Charlotte was delighted. He noticed that it was worth it. Ain asked for 3 days to discuss with the Duke. Actually, they could do it right now, but it wouldn't be very appropriate. Theo was very sleepy, so Charlotte thought so too. She put the baby to bed. Suddenly, someone started calling Charlotte's name. It was Emma. The main character didn't understand why there was such a rush, and the maid asked her if she had seen what the Hainst family had done. When they entered, Emma began to say that the Duke had prepared everything possible, from dresses to jewelry, and in general, this room was the best after the Duke's room. Emma didn't notice the joy, so she asked if everything was okay, because the Duke cared, and she didn't understand why the lady wasn't happy. But Charlotte said she was happy. It's a bit of a burden for her, but if she was truly in love with him, she would be happy. but it's too much for a contractual relationship that will one day end. Charlotte thought this was wrong. She told the maid that she would be out for a short while, but she was surprised that her mistress was going somewhere so late. The girl asked the sovereign if he was here. The man said that he was with his assistant, Mr. Chase. It was indeed the butler Robert. The man thought something was bothering him, but Charlotte said everything was fine. The problem was that she didn't think she deserved it. Charlotte asked if he could tell her when the Duke would return, because she needed to talk to him about something. She also wanted to meet the saint and asked if that was possible. She needs to understand why Theo is haunted by these troubles, and for that, the best thing she can do is ask God's representative. She just wants to wish the Duke and Theo happiness. He agreed and said he would arrange a meeting within the week. The main character wondered if she was like a madly in love. But that's not the point, because the main thing now is Theo. A girl ran up to her. Charlotte had no idea who it was. The girl was pleased to meet her. Her name was Irina Renaer, and from that moment on, she would sincerely help. Her Robert said that when the master became the head of the family, she was appointed manager of this estate. Irina asked if she had seen the estate yet, and suggested they go see it together. Charlotte was shocked, and Irina said they were leaving right now. The manager said that this room contains the HAINST family relics. It is usually closed, but Charlotte can look at whatever she wants. The atmosphere with her is completely different from that with assistant Chase. They don't look alike, but they are most likely brother and sister or cousins. She called the lady. Irina said she didn't even know what she was thinking and thought it was about their relationship with Chase. Charlotte didn't understand how she recognized. Irina said they'd better pretend. Chase is her husband, and she is a baroness. She thought the lady thought they were brother and sister. Charlotte said she would never have thought they were husband and wife. Irina said that she also got engaged without saying anything, so they quickly organized it. But she is curious how they met the Duke. Because the Duke was never interested in girls, and now he got married so. Suddenly she was very interested in knowing more about the Duke's personality, because he himself would never say. Charlotte understood that she couldn't say that everything was just on purpose, and she decided to give a preparatory answer that they met at a national ceremony. 2 years ago, they literally crashed into each other, and the Duke dropped the locket, which she still has with her. Irina was shocked when she heard about the Duke's pendant. They had only known each other by sight, and now they were meeting again thanks to Theo. As if by fate, Charlotte thought the story was stupid. Irina noticed that this story was straight out of a novel. She didn't understand how she managed to meet again. After all, their fate had brought them together again. The manager asked if it meant they didn't know each other very well, yet Charlotte agreed and said they were gradually getting to know each other better. Irina told her not to worry because she would help. The national ceremony would be repeated soon, and she suggested that they go there together. This way they can remember their first meeting, and it will be wonderful. Charlotte agreed. Actually, the ceremony will really come soon. Going there with him is probably okay. Chase informed the gentleman that he was the last witness, and he sorted it out like the gentleman said. But he's not sure everything is okay. Carlyle said he didn't know anything anyway, and he didn't care if the servant killed him. Chase noticed that they had a mole. Otherwise, they wouldn't have found out his whereabouts. The Duke thought the servant was right. The place of the master of the estate was vacant, so Chase thinks it is one of the maids, and he would like to ask Miss Linnea to help. The gentleman immediately said no. The assistant tried to deny something, but the man repeated it again. Chase asked if it would be so, even if she found out everything. After all, she was to become a duchess. Chase's idea is logical. Why didn't Carlyle like her at all? If she was in danger, so was his brother. That's all. The deal was made just for Theo. They didn't decide to send Celine to her, because it would be so easy to find the mole. Chase should have notified hers. The Duke sent him away because he was tired. He had a terrible headache, but her touch eased the pain. She must be asleep now. He told Anne to look after her. It seemed like they were all doing well. He thought about checking himself. He knocked on Charlotte's door, said goodnight, and said he was leaving. Emma said she thought someone was leaving. Theo told his sister he was scared. Charlotte sat down next to him and asked if he was scared even with her. The boy said that everything was black for some reason. Charlotte asked if he remembered the nights. Today they would say goodbye to them. It was raining, and they set off to see everyone. The Duke had been taught to hide his feelings, and he thought that was why he was standing here like nothing had happened. But in reality, it was wrong. Charlotte noticed that Carlisle seemed sad. The Duke told Theo that he could go and say goodbye to Mr. Heather. He asked if he could go with him. Theo asked if he was asleep. Carlisle told him to say goodbye to him. The little boy said goodbye to his brother Knight. That's how he is. He can't just sympathize with someone or express his emotions, and he doesn't expect comfort from others. Charlotte said the sun was shining brightly. I handed him a handkerchief to wipe his sweat with. The boy looked up at the sky. There was a thunderstorm outside. Charlotte said he just looked like someone who needed a handkerchief, and apologized if that wasn't the case. The Duke took the girl's hand. He was grateful for the concern. He asked if she had sewn it herself. Charlotte confirmed it and asked what was wrong. The Duke said nothing and promised to return it when he washed it. Charlotte was against it. He could not be mistaken. This pattern was exactly the same as his own. Charlotte was eating with Theo. She remembered the Duke asking about the handkerchief and didn't understand why he had suddenly asked about it. He hadn't even used it. Theo asked his sisters if they were going to study magic. Charlotte said not today because he had already studied it yesterday. The boy said that at that moment his whole face was shining. Charlotte noticed that when she touched it, the glow was gone. But when Theo touched it, it appeared. The main character was advised to read a book about Rosetto and the person in question. This book is in the Duke's personal collection, and if she reads it, then she will understand better who the right person is, but she doesn't know if she can take him. After all, they are falsely engaged, and it is not clear whether this is possible. A young lady entered the room. She introduced herself as Selina. Her escort, Charlotte, was pleased to meet her. It was a great honor for her. The girl took out an interesting box wrapped in gift paper, and inside were high-end cookies and candies straight from a chocolate shop. Selina was confident in the taste and confidently declared that these sweets were the best in the empire. Charlotte thanked the guest, and little Theo, peeking out from under his skirt, was a little confused because he didn't know whether to thank the lady or him, but after some thought, he still thanked the girl. Selina liked the boy so much that she smiled broadly and leaned towards him, adding that the boy looked very cute. She told him that her brother loved Theo very much and suggested they meet. As soon as the boy heard about his brother, he immediately began to glow with happiness. The escort asked Charlotte's thoughts and added that he was currently training at the gym. The girl and the boy went to look for his older brother. Theo saw him immediately, even from a distance. The guy is currently training very actively because the national founding ceremony is coming up soon, and each of the young men is actively preparing for the fencing tournament. In recent years, the Duke of Carlisle HANST has won tournaments, and he did not want to part with the title this year. During training, Carlisle saw Charlotte, and a second later, little Theo greeted him. Meanwhile, the girl admired Hainst. She found the guy's broad shoulders so amazing, she had never noticed that before. The girl blushed from these thoughts. Selina asked the young lady if she was hot, but Charlotte replied that she was fine. Theo happily ran into his brother's arms and told him that he had come just to see him. Carlisle suggested they watch the fencers, which the Chalk immediately agreed to. Besides, it wouldn't be so hot there for Charlotte. It was difficult for older brother Theo to understand Charlotte's strange behavior, but he did nothing about it. Together, they watched the fight between two fencers. The boy was delighted because it was the first time he had seen them at such a close distance. Theo was so fascinated by watching this activity that he wanted to become a fencer himself. He immediately shouted it. Carlisle gave the stick to the young boy, and he skillfully swung it in the air like a sword, while the girls only encouraged him. Suddenly, Charlotte shouted to the boy. She asked him to be more careful, but a wooden training sword flew straight towards the young man. At the last moment, Carlisle deflected the sword, and no one was hurt. But it was enough for Charlotte to become very worried. Tears came to her eyes, and she wanted to meet the saint immediately. Carlisle asked if the young lady really needed to meet the saint, and the girl agreed, saying that she needed to do it immediately. The red-haired lady tried to calm the heroine down because she was always in time. In response to this, he replied clearly and briefly that he would prepare the carriage. Already in the car, a girl with a little boy in her arms who had fallen asleep from fatigue asked if she could ask him something. For a brief moment, Carlisle looked at her and said nothing. The girl stood there, not knowing what to do. It doesn't even know how to explain everything that's happening to the little boy, and it can't tell the whole truth. Yet she is in the book world, and Theo was doomed to die, and she can't say it. That girl was worried that Theo was constantly getting into unpleasant situations. She thought it would be better for him to receive the blessing of the saint. Suddenly, Carlyle's voice interrupted my thoughts. He said that you hadn't arrived yet. Among the green trees stood the beautiful castle of Saint Little Theo, was surprised at what a beautiful temple it was, and the girl and the young man were very worried. Upon entering the hall, they were shocked because in front of them were statues of the goddesses of fate. The first of them unravels the thread, the second weaves fate from it, and the third, judging by it, decides what to do with the person next. These are three mythical creatures that are always used and fit into local folklore. The main character and the boy were met by the priestess Teresa. The girl thanked Teresa for responding so quickly to such a request, because the matter was truly urgent. But Teresa could not refuse the Duke's request, because she and he were helping the temple a lot. Theo, seeing the priest, was extremely surprised. He suddenly exclaimed, "Sister, you are an angel, an angel!" Our heroine quietly asked the boy not to poke the scales with his finger, but to just stand still. Suddenly, an anxious emotion appeared on the face of the priest. Tika, she was afraid that the girl would say something she did not want to hear. When our main character was surprised and couldn't understand what was going on here, the face of the priest Tionizia suddenly changed for the better and said that she was most likely mistaken. Then the woman extended her hand to the boy and asked him if he needed the Lord's blessing and if he could give her a pen. The boy was very embarrassed and held out his hand. The woman closed her eyes and saw that they had already been through a lot. She sincerely did not understand why the little boy had such a fate, but even with her, he was able to get through all the difficulties thanks to the goddess. After which, the priest Teo wished that only good things would happen to the boy and called him the young master. After that, the woman smiled and kissed the boy on the forehead, but suddenly the boy unexpectedly fell asleep. The main character was surprised by such reactions. She began to worry very much because the boy suddenly fell asleep. But the head mistress of the temple replied that everything was fine because he needed to get some sleep. Carlyle took the sleeping boy in his arms and thanked him. The temple servant said that nothing bad should cling to the boy anymore, and all evil would dissipate. Suddenly, the temple teacher turned to the main character and asked if she was Lady Alania, if she also needed a blessing, and if they could discuss something in private. The girls passed by, and the priestess looked at our heroine very strangely. Only after retiring to another room did the minister ask in a serious voice whether the main character knew that the thread of the young man's fate had almost broken. And the young lady didn't understand what thread of fate she was talking about. Teresa said that the baby had passed through death's door, and the situation was on the verge, which is why such terrible things happened to the boy. The girl asked the priest Theoika if she would be okay with being a boy now. The lady said that the goddess answered her prayers and restored the thread of the boy's fate. The main character felt very good, as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulder. Suddenly, the saint asked with an angry face how they were able to survive. She knew something the woman said, that from the very beginning, our heroine was not Charlotte Lanaya, but now this soul is in the hands of the goddess. The young lady was not ready for this. Charlotte expected everything, but not this. She said that a tragedy happened to her in another world. She quickly lost consciousness, and when she woke up, she found herself in this world. Then the lady said that perhaps the real Charlotte's life was hanging in the balance. The girl didn't know if Teresa would believe her words, but the woman assured her that the lady didn't need to worry, because she didn't doubt her words and wouldn't tell anyone. And I asked her about it only because she was really curious about why the heroine ended up here. But the saint is not allowed to even think about the reasons, because the girl was brought here by the goddess, and from now on, Teresa will help in absolutely everything, only so that the goddess's goal is fulfilled. After that, the priest kissed our heroine's hand and said, "Welcome to our world." After this kiss, Charlotte's thread of fate will become stronger. The saint said Theo and the girl could come at any moment. In parting, the woman asked to be more careful because their adventures will be complicated, and the thread of our heroine's fate generally consists of two different ones, so she needs to be especially careful. She looked at the girl sadly and said that it was unknown when the threads of fate might break. She was shocked by these words and wanted to ask herself what the holidays meant, but she simply locked herself in her room. On the way home, the girl's thoughts were filled with only one thing: what the holidays meant, and whether Teresa thought that Charlotte could die just like Theo. A few hours later, little Theo woke up in the girl's arms and immediately turned to her. But before the boy had time to regain consciousness, Carlyle suddenly turned to them and told them to stay put until he gave them permission. He said that they would go to the capital at top speed, and until they arrived, they were not allowed to go out or open the windows. Our heroine was very surprised by all this. Her face showed how unexpected this decision was for her. Suddenly, she heard voices, someone saying that they would put a barrier on the carriage and that it would not be possible to approach it. There were various sounds, and it was also heard that an attack was taking place on the carriage itself. Little Theo started crying. He was very scared because he didn't understand what was happening, and the girl calmed the boy down and said that she was with him and nothing bad would happen. Although she herself was incredibly shocked and very afraid, mentally she coped with her problems. The young heroine didn't know how best to do all this to calm the boy down, and even started singing a little song about sheep. Suddenly, it was all over. Carlyle opened the carriage. He said they had arrived and everyone was safe. The young boy burst into tears and ran to hug his brother. The carriage was covered in blood, and the maids ran out to help Charlotte because they didn't know what condition she was in. Already in bed, our heroine began to have some strange, terrible dreams. She was clutching the bed tightly. Carlyle came into Vicky's room. He put his hand on hers and said that everything was over and everything was fine. He knew that the girl was very scared because of all this. After that, the man asked the leaders what the results of their investigation were. Carlyle heard one interesting thing. The killers who attacked the carriage again were professionals. They were clearly ordered to take the life of a little boy. Somehow they knew that they would pass there on this route, so the killer hid in the bushes as the village told them to, and they continued to attack their target, little Theo. Surprisingly, after the carriage left, 3 different maids would come out, and each would send a letter. The first was Jessie. She was a cook. The second a laundress. And the last was Hazel, the mistress's servant. Carlyle ordered the scouts to focus on them. And if suddenly something was noticed, to report it to him immediately. One of the spies suggested contacting the owner, but Brother Theo forbade it and said that in any case, in order not to happen to her, she should not find out about it. The red-haired girl had no idea how difficult it was to watch the maids. Suddenly, she came across the owner. She told him that she was just going to see him, and they asked how she was feeling. She replied that she was feeling better and asked me to come with her because she wanted to talk about something. On their way to Charlotte's hall, they were talking sweetly about something. Suddenly, the spy saw something strange. It was the same 2 maids who had sent the letter. She paid no attention to them and did not show her face. Selina thought that Charlotte wouldn't see anything, so the lady immediately asked if there was a spy among the maids. The assistant turned away, but the lady made an angry face and asked her not to lie to her. Selina was sad because she was exposed, and she let Carlyle down. She was shocked as a lady to find out so easily. The girl said that they unexpectedly went to church, and after that they were attacked in a planned manner, which means there is a spy somewhere in the apartment. So if the Duke hasn't found him yet, it means that this person is not in direct contact with him, which means that it is the maids. Scarlett was shocked by the deductive skills of the main character. And for Charlotte, no more confirmation was needed. It was just a guess, because everything was visible on the assistant's face. But the lady wondered why they hadn't asked her for help earlier, because she could have become a maid, and it would have been much easier to keep track of the others. Charlotte also asked why she wasn't told about it all at once, but here too, the induction didn't fail. She guessed that it was the Duke who asked not to tell her about it. After that, she immediately understood why he did that, because they weren't that close, and she couldn't be trusted with such a secret. But Scarlett said that everything was a little different, and it was necessary not to talk about it for another reason. While the young lady didn't understand anything, the red-haired assistant continued. She shared that the Duke was worried about her and didn't want her to be nervous about all this again. The girl could not believe these words, and the assistant assured her that it was all true. Charlotte was very keen to become a secret spy. For the maids, she promised that the Duke would not find out about it. The assistant has to refuse, because it's all very dangerous, and she doesn't want anything to happen to the girl. But our heroine was restless, because the most important thing is to find the spy. Taking a deep breath, the assistant asked if the young lady had any more ideas. Charlotte said with a smile on her face that she had already thought of everything. Suddenly, one of the maids ran up to them and shouted that she was here, after which the lady said that to get into the world of maids, they needed to use one of them. The maid of the owner, Linnea, approached the blonde with green eyes. This maid's name was Ellie. The girl turned to her. The woman returned and asked what had happened to the maid of the owner, Linnaeus. The girl was a little confused, and then said she wanted to ask something. The problem was that she accidentally stained the owner's clothes, and colored ones at that. She shared that the owner would soon be leaving with Theo to Ledges Street, and whether the maid could help her remove the stain. The woman assured her that there was nothing to worry about, and that she would easily handle it, and also promised to keep it a secret, because at such moments you need to cover for each other. After that, Lanya's maid approached Jessie. She was the next suspect. The maid asked the cook to prepare a lunchbox, because the Duke is very busy, and therefore the master wants to bring him Edouin now in the southern chamber, due to an investigation. The cook thought it was very nice that the owner of the deer was very kind and took care of the Duke. The maid added that Theo would also be there, so she asked for 3 lunchboxes to be prepared. The cook happily replied that she would take care of everything. In the end, the girl asked Jazz not to tell anyone about it, because the host wanted it to be a surprise. The black-haired lady understood the request perfectly and assured me that she would tell everyone what lunchboxes were for the trip. As she left the kitchen, the maid saw that the owner was talking to the last of the housekeepers, and she asked where the Duke usually chooses his clothes. The maid happily replied that he chooses his clothes in a shop on Rucha Street. Hazel asked the owner to keep it all a secret because Lania wants to surprise the Duke, so it's advisable not to tell anyone that she and Theo are going to the store. Immediately after this conversation, Emma ran up and reported that she had done everything Lania had asked. The young lady was worried that something might happen to the hostess because she was really going there, but the woman assured her that everything would be fine because Sir Ain would help her and she would just pretend to be going there. She told the hostess not to worry and added that everything would be fine, and finally asked if the maid had prepared one thing. This thing was a teddy bear. She wrapped it in a sheet and put a hat on it to make it look like a little boy in her arms. Shusha was in the carriage. She was happy because she knew that the spy would soon be found. An assistant was already waiting for her in the carriage. He said that all the preparations were finished. As soon as the carriage set off, she took the assistant's hand, and he Theo-ported them to little Theo. Seeing that Lania had returned, Theo happily ran over to hug her. The boy missed his owner so much that he asked to hug only him. The maid asked if everything was okay with the hostess. The girl replied that everything was fine, but Sir Ain looked tortured, although the boy said that everything was okay with him too. Now it remains to be seen which of the carriages will be attacked. One carriage was moving along the route and came across forest bandits who were hired to kill the little boy, Theo. One of them approached the driver and ordered him to turn back into the fairy forest if he wanted to survive. Suddenly, the attacker saw that his colleague had fallen from a tree for some unknown reason, and fear was visible in his eyes. The driver of the cart was an unusual man. He was a specially trained and skilled bodyguard, so such an easy competition was within his reach. The attacker's attack was easily repelled, and the main thing was that the spy was found. The assistant immediately came to the Duke to report everything she knew about it. She began to tell me that she had given the suspects 3 different locations, and it turned out that Ellie's laundress was a spy. She had taken such radical action to pay for the treatment of her sick parents. He was extremely surprised he didn't understand who gave this order and who was behind it. The assistant said that the killer had a pattern on it depicting a poisonous plant, namely the hyson flower. The Duke immediately realized that this was the Daros Guild. Ordinary robberies were no longer enough for them, so they went for the kill. The man decided to go to the Daros Guild base immediately. Standing with his sword, the Duke looked at the burning thieves' camp. One of the bandit leaders said that in these 3 years, he had never forgotten the face of the Duke or the voices of his comrades who died that very day. The man asked if the thief really wanted revenge, because he never thought that a thief could value relationships so much. The man ordered them to tell him who ordered the thief to do all this, because the guild could not have done it on its own. But the beaten bandit replied that no one had ordered him to do anything and smiled evilly. The Duke was angry, so he decided not to play games, but immediately put his blade to the bandit's throat and asked again. The murderer held out until the last moment and didn't want to say anything, so the Hertzleg had to be killed. As soon as the Duke left the thieves' camp, an assistant ran up to him and said that they had taken care of everything and that no one here had survived. The Duke ordered to take the surviving documents and return. But before returning, the assistant wanted to tell him something, and she added that the owner Lania knew everything, which made Carlyle very surprised and even angry. Walking down the corridor, the Duke was very nervous and walked with clenched fists, lost in thought. He did not understand what Lania was thinking, since she was getting involved in such a dangerous matter. She had already saved Theo twice, first from a pot, and then from a sword, and the man didn't understand why the lady didn't value her life so much. Standing in front of the door, the man promised himself to have a serious talk with her about this topic, but suddenly he realized that it was thanks to the plan that little Theo was safe. Suddenly, the Duke's thoughts were interrupted by the doe herself, who had just opened the door. An awkward silence fell between them. Suddenly, the owner said that she heard footsteps, so she decided to see who it was. She asked if Carlyle wanted to talk to her. The Duke said that he had learned that it was she who had come up with the plans for the carriage, and the lady began to pretend that she knew absolutely nothing. The Duke replied that Selina told him everything, which is why he came. Our heroine was a little embarrassed, but she didn't even know why the assistant decided to tell all this, because they decided to keep quiet. The Duke said that if even one mistake had been made, our heroine could have been in great danger. Since Carlyle was very worried about her, he raised his voice and asked again what she would do then. He wondered if the girl was behaving like this because of Theo, because if something happened to Carlyle, he would be in danger. Lania smiled and apologized. She said she would be more careful for Theo's sake and that she was only concerned about his safety, and she didn't think about any consequences. The Duke said that he always causes some inconvenience and therefore feels indebted to her. He said that the girl can wish for absolutely anything because she helped him a lot. Then our heroine said that she didn't need anything in return. Carlyle insisted that the girl want something because it would be uncomfortable for him. After thinking a little, the girl said that there was one place she would like to visit, and that was the Duke's personal reading room. Carlyle immediately complied with the girl's request and took her to the reading room. The butler said that if she needed anything, she could contact him. Lania began searching for a book about Rosetta. She believed that such an important book was somewhere inside. She fumbled between books, running her fingers through the history of the empire, the achievements of Alexandros II and others. But it wasn't all that. Suddenly, her gaze returned to the table. There was a book lying there, and on it was a note from Carlyle himself. On the note he wrote that he had already found the book he needed. As soon as our heroine opened the book, she realized that absolutely everything written there was incomprehensible to her. So she went to Sir Ian with her. The sorcerer said that most likely the book was written in an ancient language because it was not planned to be mass-produced, and besides, few people were allowed to study it. Our heroine asked if he knew this language. The sorcerer replied that he did and could not explain anything because this book came straight from the Duke's personal hall, and he could not read it in front of strangers. Lania didn't understand how she could read this book then. The sorcerer told the girl that she had nothing to worry about because she could always ask the Duke to read this book. She was surprised, and Sir Ian told her that Carlyle knew ancient languages, and this one too. High Anest is a family of archmages that appeared a long time ago, so the Duke studied ancient languages in his youth. The sorcerer asked if he still needed his help, and the girl replied that she could handle the rest herself. Our Lady was mentally worried because Sir Ian believes that our heroine and the Duke are lovers, and in reality, they are not close enough to each other to read books together. Later, Lania went into Theo's room, and the little boy happily ran up to her and asked if his sister would study magic. The teacher asked if they had practiced their skills, and Lania replied that she wasn't entirely confident. He asked to put his hand on the magic layer. The heroine thought about some strange feeling, as if something was coming out of her bones. She felt nothing except a rare pain in her stomach. Little Theo put his hand exactly where it hurt. This place was very bright. It felt like something was coming out of my body. Suddenly, the layer started to glow brighter. Just like little Theo, and suddenly it was all over. The young man was very happy, but Lania was uneasy. This was due to the fact that she had a very low mana threshold since she had released a lot of mana. She needed regeneration, and over time, she would get better. But little Theo showed amazing results, because at 4 years old, he is incredibly good at mana, and his skills will only improve over time. Sir An advised the owner to focus on this feeling that she experienced during her subsequent training sessions, and then her abilities would only grow. The girl fell asleep, hugging a book she still didn't understand anything about. A maid came up to her and asked her not to sleep in a chair because it was uncomfortable and to go to bed. But Lania wanted to talk to the Duke when he returned. Suddenly, Lania called Carlyle. He turned to her and asked why she was still awake since it was already late. The girl, covering her smile with her hand, replied that she was waiting for him. After all, the book he gave her was written in an ancient language. Carlyle wanted to get closer to her, but Our Lady got scared and moved away. The man replied that he didn't bite, and that you shouldn't run away from him like that. Lania admitted that she couldn't read this book, but he replied that he knew about it. The girl's thoughts filled everything. There was only one question why the Duke gave her this book then. Suddenly, he asked if the girl had any free time. Lania didn't understand why, but Carlyle replied that he would read a book for her. But first, they needed to move to another room if it was convenient for her. Our heroine had nothing to do, so she agreed to leave. Now Carlyle said that in that case, they would go to the reading room. As she walked to the reading room, the girl had the feeling that he was waiting for her to come to the reading room with her. The Duke pointed to a strange sign and said that the girl needed this particular section. Lania recognized it because Theo had the same mark on his body. Carlyle said it was a rose symbol, and the little boy had it since birth. Having slightly distracted from the book, our heroine began to examine Carlyle's body and wondered if he had such a mark on his body. She had thoughts about what a good body the Duke had, and that he must be working hard on himself. Her thoughts were interrupted by Carlyle himself, and suddenly she shouted that it turned out that little Theo had been a rosette from birth. The Duke replied that this was absolutely correct and amazing, because in the case of his younger brother, the Mena began to move faster than at the beginning of the year. Lania thought that most likely it was related to the death of his mother. It was simply an incredible stress for the little boy, which caused such a strong release of manios. The girl was lost in thought again, and did not notice how her gaze was focused on the Duke. Carlyle asked why she was looking at him like that, and the girl replied that she was just curious to learn something new. She asked what was the right man for her, and to answer that question, she needed to read another book. The heroine didn't know what book she needed to find, because the library was very large. Carlyle looked at her, and seeing that she was confused and couldn't find the right book, decided to help her. Lania was embarrassed by the fact that the Duke stood so close behind her. The girl didn't feel herself yet. She looked into his eyes and was very confused. Meanwhile, Carlyle got the necessary book and went in his direction. Lania was extremely surprised by such a concession from the Duke. They continued reading the book. It said that the mother's body changes when she overcomes death, and that's when she becomes able to suppress her monite. The husband found out that she had been sick several times 3 years ago. Perhaps because of this, she became a suitable person. There was no peace in our heroine's thoughts. She learned a lot of new information, and was very surprised because she could not even guess that only by getting sick several times could one become suitable. Besides, it was at this very time that little Theo fell into the possession of Lanios. Carlyle asked if there was anything else that was bothering the girl. The heroine replied that she had learned everything she needed to because she was curious about how exactly she had become a suitable person. Suddenly, the lady took Carlyle by the hand and led him away, her thoughts filled with many conjectures. Most likely, if all these situations with Theo were not a coincidence, but an inevitable fate, then the situation with Carlyle is identical. The next day, Lania had breakfast with little Theo, who is an incredibly kind and positive boy. The only thing that is unclear is who wanted to harm him so badly and why. Daros is a guild of mercenaries, and their leader is from the barbarian race. He was known for his anger, and most likely he was jealous of his master. There was nothing to worry about for now, because all the enemies had been neutralized, but still one couldn't relax too much, because it was unknown when Lania would attack again. She asked the assistant if there had been any problems, since the Duke had learned that the girl had taken part in the hunt for the thief. The red-haired girl said that she told the Duke everything directly because she couldn't lie to him, and she was always scolded when she was in danger. This greatly surprised our heroine, and the assistant replied that there was nothing wrong with it. She was mistaken, and next time she would protect her better. The girl said that the Duke really appreciated Lania, but the heroine corrected the assistant and said that he appreciated not her, but rather Theo. Suddenly, she noticed that Theo had put aside some pieces of food. It was peas, but he didn't like it very much. Despite all the requests to eat the peas, the little one never gave in. He threw the peas right under the table. But he was asked not to do that again. You can't just throw food around like that. Lania said that the boy doesn't think about the fact that the farmer spent a lot of effort growing the peas, as well as the cook who cooked for him. If they found out what Theo was doing with their work, they would probably feel uncomfortable. The kid apologized and didn't want to finish eating. There were a lot of thoughts in the bathroom, and she didn't know what to do to make the boy want to eat, because you can't force him because it will have a bad effect on him. Most likely they just need to cook their own food, and then the boy will probably eat better. Little Theo liked this idea because everything that Lania likes, he likes too. Jenny was also very happy about this, and the children started laughing with joy. The heroine approached the butler and said that she wanted to cook the food, and also that she wanted Theo to grow the vegetables himself. The butler replied that if we are talking about a full-fledged farm, then you need to ask the Duke about it. Lania wondered if she should ask her about it herself, but the butler replied that Carlisle's schedule was very busy, so talking to him was a task in itself. Lania noticed that she really hadn't seen him for a long time and asked the butler to tell her when he would arrive today. Carlisle would most likely arrive late tonight, but the girl still asked to be notified of the Duke's arrival because she needed to meet him. The main character said goodbye to the butler and began to wait for the Duke because she was sure that he was supposed to return today. But now evening had come and Carlisle was still not there. The lady was already beginning to worry. Suddenly, the butler came and said that the Duke had arrived and was now in his office. The butler asked if he could show her to the office, and Lania knew the way to him well, so she said she would come herself. She didn't know when they would be able to see each other again, if not today, so she went anxiously and froze at the door for a second. Suddenly, Carlisle himself opened the door, his purple eyes looking at the girl in surprise. He asked what Milady was doing here. Lania apologized for coming so late, and she just wanted to say something, because she didn't know when she would have another chance. The man was very scared. Concern was visible on his face. Lania apologized for bothering him, because he was very tired, and she was also talking to him. And the Duke said that there was no problem with that, because he worked so much with papers that he forgot to communicate with people. They came to his office, and the girl sat down. Sitting across from her husband seemed very awkward to her. Carlisle's look was very strange. She thought there was something wrong with her face. Suddenly, she was lost in thought and even forgot what she wanted to tell me. She was so confused that when the Duke asked her what she wanted, Lania asked if he had eaten dinner. Carlisle was surprised by such a question and asked if that was what she had come to ask. The lady replied that she was just curious. The man replied that he had eaten little today, but he was probably so busy that he hadn't thought about food Lania suggested eating because she really wanted to, even though it was late. They asked the butler to prepare something light. While the couple was waiting for their food, they discussed various points. The girl noticed that her husband had been very busy lately, so he replied that he did this every day. The young lady suggested having lunch together because one way or another, he needed to take a break from work at least once, and besides, little Theo wanted to see him. But suddenly, the girl thought and realized that most likely her advice was not important to him. But Carlisle replied that he had heard everything, and later he would try to have dinner with Theo. Lania talked about her observations that Theo really doesn't like vegetables and came up with a great idea how to fix it. They just need to grow these vegetables together, so they need to set aside a corner for the garden. The Duke put his hand to his beard and began to think. A moment later, he replied that he would tell the gardeners to prepare everything. The lady was beaming with happiness and was very grateful to Carlisle. It was at this time that the butler arrived with light meals. After a light snack and a chat about what she needed, the girl said it was time. As soon as Lania left the office, Carlisle, who had been happy a moment ago, now felt empty inside. But for him, this was not surprising, because all he knew how to do was work with papers. He looked at the girl's plate and saw that she wanted to eat and left almost everything. Apparently, she lied about not eating and left the food for him. A smile appeared on the Duke's face. He covered it with his hand, and as soon as he closed his eyes, he immediately saw the silhouette of Lania, who was asking him to rest. He was filled with positive emotions. Even if this feeling was not real, he was still happy. Lanaya was already lying in bed when suddenly she heard a strange sound. The door opened imperceptibly. At that very moment, little Theo ran into her room. The boy hugged the girl tightly, and she had only one question. Why was her baby still awake at such a late hour? She thought the little one had had a nightmare, but the boy wanted something else. He had recently planted some seeds, and now he wanted to see what happened to them. The lady dissuaded the child and asked him to sleep a little longer. The little one happily agreed. The next morning, they went out into the garden to see what was going on with their little farm, and the boy was in such a hurry that Lanaya began to worry that he might fall. Even in such a short period of time, the seeds grew strongly, and Theo's eyes showed surprise and joy. He could not have imagined that growing plants could be such an interesting and fantastic thing. Of course, the gardener's help was needed, because the seeds couldn't germinate overnight. So the gardener and his servant replaced the seeds with sprouted plants. The boy ran from one bed to another and was delighted with how everything had sprouted. Meanwhile, Carlyle was going somewhere, and the butler noticed that the man had left earlier than usual today. The man said that he had an important meeting today because he hadn't seen his younger brother for a long time, and he asked where the owner and the boy were now. The butler said that they were in the garden and asked if they should be called, but Carlyle decided to walk to them himself. At this moment, Theo was showing Lanaya how big and appetizing the tomatoes had grown. They tried them together and had fun. Carlyle's thoughts were filled with memories of his mother, who had cared for Theo those fleeting peaceful days when she had taught him to talk, hold his hands, and walk. And this whole idyll was interrupted by death as little Theo not only experienced grief, but from now on he is in incredible danger, because if the spell breaks its course, the boy will go after his mother. When the boy grew up, Carlyle could no longer go to the garden, because his grief was connected with the fact that he would never hear his mother's laughter that so often sounded there. Surprisingly, this year Lania came, and the garden seemed to bloom. It was bright, pleasant, and warm in the soul again. As soon as the boy saw his older brother, he immediately ran up to him and started telling him about his little farm corner, where he and his owner planted tomatoes and peas. He was so excited that he immediately ran to show off the tomato he had grown. Surprisingly, the man felt both happy and very sad at the same time, because Lania had appeared in his life so quickly, and he was afraid that she would disappear from him so quickly. He wants to hold her so tightly that she won't let go for anything. The man couldn't resist touching the girl's hair. It was an incredibly pleasant feeling, both in his heart and at his fingertips. Lania asked what happened, and the Duke replied that a leaf was stuck in her hair. Suddenly, a little boy ran up and showed what beautiful tomatoes he had grown. The kid was so impressed that he called his brother for dinner. Carlyle didn't forget about the girl and invited her to the meal. Something flashed in her heart as well. She stopped for a moment and couldn't let go of the strand that Carlyle was touching. They were happily eating at the table, and little Theo was showing off the peas he had grown himself. You girls, it worked out great, because the boy not only found something to do, but also started eating well. Meanwhile, Lania's head was filled with thoughts of whether the Duke was really listening to her words, but most likely it was all because of Theo. At the end of the meal, Carlyle suggested that they have breakfast together tomorrow, as he had urgent business and would go to his office first. But as soon as he started, he immediately felt that a young lady was holding him back. The girl simply wanted to ask if he would mind some carrot soup. There was a slightly awkward pause between them, after which he replied that he didn't mind. Lania promised to make soup, but she couldn't move for a few seconds after Carlyle left. Little Theo noticed this, but he didn't understand what was happening. But the girl's head was filled with thoughts about why she had stopped him so abruptly, as if she didn't want to say goodbye. But then came the news from Isaac. His writing was different from the others, because usually his hand didn't shake so much. But this one is not surprising, because he can only be surprised because no one would be surprised by such a sudden engagement. Although in reality, the letter was still good news, the maid thought, because she thought he would immediately come running here upon hearing this news. The letter praised Lanaya for handling everything so well, and the owner said he wanted to see her as soon as possible at a city cafe. The boy called Lanaya. He was lying in bed. He was very sick. The heroine approached the boy and stroked him, while the maid asked if she should call a carriage, and the girl refused. The assistant was worried, because she knew what the Duke would be worried about. But the owner said that everything was fine. She didn't need to go anywhere, because the brothers would arrive directly at their castle. The luxurious carriage stopped right outside Heinst Castle, and two tall men dressed in white uniforms got out. Jack was very angry because he thought that the Duke was keeping Leonia in the castle and not letting her out anywhere. His brother asked him to calm down, but the guy couldn't calm down. It was still very strange to him. He promised that as soon as even one hair fell out of her, because of Heinst, he wouldn't just leave him. The doors opened, and behind them stood our heroine. She was smiling and happily greeted the brothers on their arrival. The fussy brother first shouted at his sister and demanded an explanation of what it all meant. After passing the table, he did not calm his anger, because in his opinion, his sister was still too young for an engagement. But Lania replied that at her age it was absolutely normal to get married. Little Theo came running to all these screams and began to stand up for the girl, telling them not to touch her. One of the brothers replied that they were not offended, but were reprimanding him, and in general, it was their sister, not the little boy. But Theo stubbornly stood his ground and said that it was his sister. Jack couldn't calm down and continued to argue with the little one, whether this was really his sister, until Lania herself interrupted. She said that at 24 years old, he was behaving very foolishly because he was 24, and he was now arguing with a 3-year-old child. My brother was always worried that no one had been there for so long. And then suddenly, it happened so abruptly that the girl got engaged, and she treated it as simply as if she had baked pancakes. The little boy didn't like it. All he asked to stop playing with the boys and stay away from them, because they were really stressing him out. The brother asked Jack to calm down, but he stood his ground and said that the little boy continued to tease him. Suddenly, one of the brothers bought the little boy a very delicious and expensive chocolate, and the boy's eyes lit up from what he saw. The boy's angry expression suddenly changed to a cheerful one, because he really loves chocolate. Lania had a serious conversation with her brothers, so she asked Theo to eat with Emma for now, because she wanted to tell her brothers something. The maid took the happy boy away, and he couldn't wait to try the delicious chocolate. The brothers wanted an explanation, and although the story was quite long, the girl decided to tell it all. It started 2 years ago when they were all in the capital together, and it was then that she first saw the Duke. They were very surprised, because they could not understand how she had met the Duke so quickly as soon as they had left. They didn't really want to dig into it, but Lanaya assured them that it was true. She met a guy at a national ceremony when it suddenly started raining, and she didn't know what her brothers were doing. The rain was very heavy, and it was clear that the rain would not end. Suddenly, a woman looked out from a nearby cafe and asked us not to stand in the rain, but to come in, otherwise she might get sick. The owner didn't care that Lanaya was wet. The young lady needed to dry off and get warm. The woman shared that she had never seen girls like her. Lania said that she was from Midnight, and her brothers were knights of the capital, so she was accompanying them to the ceremony. The saleswoman at the candy store said that it's no wonder she's not from the capital, because she doesn't look like the locals at all. Suddenly, the saleswoman remembered something and asked to wait in the hall until she returned, and very quickly ran into another room. The woman was very worried that guests would come, and she had nothing prepared. And just at that moment, an unknown man with a hood over his head came in. Lania was not at a loss, and greeted him saying welcome, and asked if the man was looking for something. But she didn't hear an answer. She decided that the stranger was in a bad mood, so she asked about who needed these candies and how old he was. The unknown person replied that the child was about a year old. Suddenly, Lania was struck by lightning. The man's low voice was filled with grief, anger, and suffering. She didn't know what to do, but still offered a little teddy bear, asking for the stranger's opinion. Most likely the man liked this gift. He touched it. The lady said she was glad, because he liked this plush toy. After packing the toy in a paper bag, she let the buyer go. Since it was raining outside and it was necessary for the toy not to get wet, The unknown person put it under his raincoat so that it would not get wet. Lania realized that the child was very important to him because he was so careful with this toy. As soon as he walked out the door, our heroine shouted after him to stop. She ran out into the rain and handed him a handkerchief. The lady said that the rain was heavy and that she could wipe it off with a handkerchief. She added that the little one would really like the teddy bear and also assured the stranger that everything would be fine because she saw all the sadness in the boy's eyes. She gave the man a handkerchief so he could wipe his face from the rain, but what she really meant was for him to not hold back his tears. In this case, if the guy gave vent to his emotions, the scarf helped hide the tears. But the brothers started asking how exactly the girl knew that it was Heinz, because his face was covered by a cape, and there are quite a few teddy bears like that. The lady said that he had lost the pendant she had kept it, and when the Duke found the second part of the pendant, that was how they remembered each other. Jake couldn't believe that this was how they were reunited with a stranger after 2 years apart. They couldn't believe that Duke Heinz could believe such a thing, after which my brother got angry again, because I know that the Duke addresses his sister as Miss Linnea, but in reality, no lover would call his other half that way, and most likely something was wrong, and he was planning something bad. Suddenly, Linnea became very embarrassed, so much so that she began to wrinkle her skirt from emotion. She said that she really liked the Duke and was glad to meet him again. She doesn't regret her choice at all and asked her brothers not to worry about her. The older brother said that he listened to her choice and was completely on her side, although Jack didn't like it very much. But that didn't worry anyone. The older brother also said that Charlotte could come back at any time, and they would be waiting for her, after which the brothers decided that they needed to go back. In parting, Jack said that he would keep a very close eye on Duke Heinz. The brother told Lania that there was no need to see them off, because they would see each other again very soon. Charlotte didn't understand why they would meet, but her husband said that there would be a kung fu martial arts competition very soon, and that's where they would meet again. The next morning began with little Theo and another boy playing on the porch, while the women drank tea and embroidered. Irina wondered why Charlotte started embroidering so unexpectedly. The owner, Linnea, replied that the kung fu competition would begin very soon. Every year, she gives the brothers a scarf. The woman anxiously asked if the girl would give the handkerchief to the Duke as well, but the owner, Linnea, was not sure that the Duke would host a kung fu competition. The lady replied that a gift is a gift, and it can be given even without competition, especially since the Duke will definitely like it. Now the main character understands her brother's doubts, because if she were a real bride, she would first embroider a scarf for the Duke, and then for her brothers. After thinking everything over, the girl replied that as soon as she finished the scarves for her brothers, she would make one for the Duke as well. Irina was very happy about this. She added that it was very nice to receive such a scarf from a loved one. While sewing, the conversation continued. The lady asked if the miss would be with the Duke at the festival, but the main character replied that most likely she would stay home because she couldn't leave little Theo alone. If the girl really didn't want to get into the competition, she had no choice, because she could neither leave Theo nor take him with her, because she wasn't sure that the killers had been completely eliminated. Suddenly, the maid took the woman's hands and said that she would help her. There was a misunderstanding in Charlotte's eyes, but the girl said to trust her. At dinner, Irina, Charlotte, and Carlisle sat down to eat together. The main character began to guess what was happening. She begged God and all real and unreal forces to make Irina do what she promised. But then the dialogue began. The girl asked what my lord planned to do on the day of the national ceremony. Carlisle replied curtly that he would visit the knights briefly to encourage them, but that he still had a lot of paperwork to do. Irina exclaimed in surprise that this could not be done right in the middle of the festival. She added that it was better to devote time to her fiancé. She added that he couldn't even imagine how upset Iceland would be about having to be alone throughout the festival. Charlotte wanted to say something to stop it all, but Irina was stubborn. She said that there was no need to say that everything was fine, because it couldn't be normal for the groom to be busy with only work throughout the entire holiday, especially since Carlisle met the girl at the national ceremony. So you can take this opportunity to refresh memories of your first meeting and spend time together. Although Charlotte said that everything was fine, and that nothing like that was necessary because she didn't want to distract the Duke from his work, Carlisle replied that he understood everything well and would take her words into account. they would do it all exactly as she said. The man realized after Irina's words that he had not seen anything beyond his nose, at which point our heroine froze in surprise. After the morning meal, the girls left the dining room. It was impossible not to notice the smile on Irina's face. She said that everything would be as it was, so we should completely trust her. Charlotte thanked Irina from the bottom of her heart, because now she will be able to go to the festival with the Duke. Irina replied that there was nothing wrong with that, she only regretted taking the little one with her, even though she could have easily looked after him. But for the owner of the deer, on the contrary, it is much better because she will not have to worry about the baby. Meanwhile, the maid came up to Miss Irina and said that the carriage was ready. Before leaving, she said that Miss Lani's embroidery skills had indeed improved, and even more, her patterns were of such high quality that they deserved the highest praise. Our heroine was embarrassed by such a barrage of compliments. Although Ms. Lania had many doubts about the quality of her work, Irina said that her work is truly beautiful, and even if she were to put it up for sale now, she is sure that right outside the gate, there would be a huge line of people wanting to buy her product. The woman asked to show the product to the maid, Mrs. Lanaya, was embarrassed and involuntarily held out the handkerchief. Hazel looked at this product. She was very surprised by the quality and beauty of this scarf. Although the pattern reminded her of something, Charlotte replied that it was a traditional pattern of the barony of Lanius, and that it would be quite difficult to find something like it. But the maid said she had definitely seen something similar on the fabric. It was embroidered with dark blue threads, while the one she saw was pinkish purple. The lady who served my lord tidied up this handkerchief with this particular embroidery. The girl remembers how he ordered it to be washed with special care. Charlotte was very surprised by these words spoken by the maid. But after a little thought, she realized that most likely it was this handkerchief that she had given when she met the Duke 2 years ago. Irina quickly ran into the Lord's office and aggressively began asking what the hell this handkerchief was that he had had for 2 years and where it came from. Carlyle was surprised by this information because he hadn't told her this, so the man asked Irina how she knew about it. The girl replied that it wasn't important. Now she needed to know who he got the scarf from. Mr. Heinst ordered us to stay out of other people's business. Irina could not calm down at all. She could not believe that 2 years ago, the Duke had made a promise to some other woman. The angry woman said that Mrs. Lanaya knew everything, but for the man it was nothing special. While the woman was waiting for an explanation and screaming loudly, Mr. Heinst decided to sort everything out himself and asked Irina to leave the office. The woman listened to him, but as she was turning away, she said afterwards that if Mrs. Lanaya wanted to break off the engagement, he should not dare contact her, because she would never help him. The man with glasses asked the Duke what happened, because the woman looked very angry. Carlyle replied that there was nothing like that. The assistant reported that all preparations for the national ceremony were complete, and he also fully prepared comfortable places to watch the fireworks show that little Theo was looking forward to. Remembering the conflict that had just occurred, Heinz smiled because it seemed ridiculous to him to break off the engagement, because no one would allow this. The holiday day had arrived, and the little boy was very happy, because today he would see fireworks. Mrs. Lanaya dressed the boy in ordinary, inconspicuous clothes, so as not to attract unnecessary attention. Suddenly, Heinz appeared dressed in high trousers and a white shirt. Even though he promised to dress as informally as possible, he still looked very businesslike. His little brother ran up to him and asked for his arms. He was very happy because today he would spend the whole day with his brother. Carlyle turned to Lania and said that all preparations were complete, so they could go to the holiday. Walking through the city center, the festival was at its peak. There were clowns, lots of people, various exhibitions, and interesting things. The kid's eyes widened from how diverse and interesting everything that surrounded him was. But the main character didn't notice, because she couldn't believe that the unknown person she gave the handkerchief to would turn out to be Heinz. The girl finally dared to tell my lord that it was thanks to him that she had been able to enjoy the atmosphere of a national ceremony again for such a long time, and she also noticed that Theo was very cheerful. Only one thing seemed strange to her. Carlyle did not take his eyes off her for a moment. Suddenly, the girl saw the exact place where she had crossed paths with the stranger and given him the handkerchief. The same owner was also there. And the girl ran up to her with joy and the woman welcomed her just as warmly. They were very happy to meet each other after such a long time. She asked who those two were behind her. Had the girl already managed to get married? But Charlotte replied that the lady didn't quite understand. Their pleasant conversation was interrupted by a woman screaming for help. Her purse had been stolen, and the thief ran straight down the road. Carlyle reacted instantly and said he would be right back. The owner of the candy store said that pickpockets are thriving because there is a lot of easy prey during the festival. The woman asked to wait for her boyfriend inside. Theo really wanted to get there, so we reluctantly went to the sugar shop. The store owner noticed that the boy was very cute, but she was more interested in what kind of relationship Lanya had with the man who was holding the boy in his arms. Charlotte replied that he was just her acquaintance and that this child was his younger brother, and he had become very attached to her, so it was decided that she would look after him for a while. Our heroine said that for now, she is settled in the capital, and as soon as her work is completed, she will return to her small family in the barony of Lanias. The shop owner wondered if she understood correctly that this was the same barony of Laney, which is located at the very edge of the kingdom. Now it became clear why they couldn't find her for so long, because the man to whom Charlotte sold the teddy bear came to this very store again in the winter and said he was looking for her, asking about her whereabouts. Mrs. Lania was very worried about what the saleswoman said. The woman replied that it was also the first time they had met, so she didn't know anything about the young lady. Charlotte wondered if the woman knew the name, or where the man who was interested in her lived. But despite all the questions the saleswoman asked, he didn't tell her a single drop of information about himself. Although this man seemed a little suspicious to her, because 2 years ago it was raining, so it was completely logical that he would appear in a hood. But when he came the second time, it was sunny outside and he covered his face again. The shop owner thought that if it was an ordinary person, he wouldn't hide from other people's eyes, so she was sure that his conscience was not clear. Just at that moment, Carlyle came in. He had to fuss a little, but everything worked out. Little Theo was offered to continue the walk, because now his brother is back, and he has had enough fun. Charlotte thanked the store owner and said that thanks to her, they had a wonderful time at the store. The woman only asked to visit more often while they were in the capital. Moving a little off topic, the saleswoman suggested that she meet her son because Charlotte is a very beautiful and kind girl. But at one point, Carlyle interrupted her, saying that there would be no such chance because she was already engaged to him. The shop owner was shocked because a few minutes ago she had heard that this was just her acquaintance. Charlotte didn't want to explain anything, so they quickly left the store. In parting, the girl said that she was very happy to see the owner and would definitely come to her again next time. When they went out into the yard, Charlotte asked Carlyle why he had remembered their engagement, but he didn't give a clear answer, but instead asked in return whether Charlotte had some special reason why she wanted to keep it a secret, that they weren't the bride and groom. Carlyle looked as if he had suddenly become bored and had stopped just as quickly when he heard the answer, but his face still looked pouty. Suddenly, Theo asked to go back, because he wanted to watch the fireworks. Since the sun will soon set over the horizon, they need to choose a convenient place where they can see the entire fireworks display. As soon as they arrived at the right place, the boy fell asleep before he could see the fireworks. She never managed to wake the boy up during the fireworks. At that moment, Carlyle held out Charlotte's handkerchief. Our heroine thought it was the same scarf she had given him at the funeral ceremony, but in fact, it was the same scarf for the unknown. And it turns out that the same man who was supposed to cover her face that she met in the store was Carlyle. The man asked if the girl remembered meeting him 2 years ago. That day, the sky was very overcast, and the Duke himself felt an endless sense of anxiety. He ran away from the mansion precisely because he couldn't handle the bad news. He thought about Theo for a long time, and all of this made him start to suffocate, as if a huge stone had been placed on his chest. The man was sad because at that time, Theo was a newborn baby who had never even said mom to him, and he didn't know how to explain all this to him. Apparently, the reason was that he remembered Theo again, but in the end, he went into a toy store that happened to catch his eye. It was there that he met Lania, whose voice had a strange power, a magic that at a subconscious level forced him to open his mouth and obediently answer questions. And her parting phrase, "Not to worry, everything will get better," sowed such a pleasant feeling of peace in his heart, filled with anxiety and doubts. The handkerchief seemed to be filled with her warmth. Carlyle saw Mrs. Lanaya as a strong and kind person who, despite the pouring rain, was ready to cheer up a stranger. When he saw the handkerchief she had handed him at the funeral ceremony, he realized that the person he had met 2 years ago was Charlotte. From that day on, he constantly looked forward to meeting her. Here, our heroine's breath caught, because she also remembered every time she saw rain outside the window, and really wanted to meet it again, at least once. At the very moment the girl uttered these words, dozens of fireworks lit up the sky. All words were covered by the echoes of the fireworks. The girl understood that in the future, another world would open before her. The next day, Theo and the boy played together again, while Charlotte sat on the porch and thought about it all. Irina pushed the girl and asked if everything was okay, and if she had a good time at the festival. Lania replied that it was thanks to Irina that she had a great time. The woman replied that she was jealous of Charlotte because it was the same time of dating one of the most beautiful relationships Theo and Denny ran to the women. Seeing how Irina amused her son, Theo instantly became very sad. In tears, he walked over to Charlotte and hugged her tightly. The whole day after this incident, he walked around like a limp, even though all physical tests were normal, and he still didn't look well. Lanaya suggested reading a fairy tale to the boy, namely The Adventures of Toto the Rabbit. The boy's face brightened a little. Last time they focused on how Toto went to his grandmother with a request from his mother. At this very moment in the fairy tale, it was already very dark, and the grandmother was worried about her grandson because she didn't know if he would be able to get home safely. Toto replied that he would easily get home and set off. As soon as he entered the forest, a strong wind began, and the bunny heard a wolf nearby. Little Theo, at that moment, was very worried about the bunny and was rooting for him to return home as soon as possible. Frightened, Toto started running towards his house and suddenly tripped on a stone and fell. He burst into tears in horror and began calling for his mother. Hearing Toto's voice, his mother ran through the dark forest to take him home, and at home she read him fairy tales and stroked his back. Just at that moment, the little rabbit thanked his mother for coming in such a difficult moment. This made Theo cry a lot, and Charlotte didn't understand why, because she thought the boy was very worried about the fate of the hare. But in a fit of tears, I asked you why Toto has a mother, and he doesn't. Both Toto and his mother are in the daycare, but little Theo doesn't have one. Only now did the girl understand why the boy had been sad all day, and Charlotte suggested they come together to see Theo's mother. The girl opened one side. Behind it was a beautiful portrait depicting Carlyle's parents and him as a child. The little boy saw this picture for the first time. Charlotte told him that this woman was his mother. The boy wondered where his mother was now. The girl told the story of how he had recently said goodbye to his brother, a knight who was also an old friend. A long time ago, when he was very young, his mother had also had to say goodbye to him. Theo asked if it meant he would never see his mother again. Mrs. Lania replied that it was true, but nevertheless, he should know that she loved him very much, loves him, and will always love him. All this made the boy cry again, leaning against the woman. She added that, although he wouldn't be able to meet his mother, they could come and look at the portrait whenever he wanted to see her. Something surprised her about the portrait, namely why Carla wasn't sitting in the middle. Rubbing the painting a little, she suddenly saw another person wearing a pendant that Carlyle later gave her. Theo excitedly asked Mrs. Laney who this person was, who had suddenly appeared in the picture. Suddenly, a family member who had not been there before also appeared on the column. It was Edgar Heinst. I know who he is, because I read about him in a book. He is the eldest son of the Heinst family, and the twin brother of Carlyle, who died 16 years ago. Suddenly, the butler ran in and asked in fright what they had done with the painting. The man ordered not to tell anyone about what they had seen today. He asked them to leave the room because he needed to put it in order. After putting the boy to bed, Charlotte covered him, and she said that he didn't have to see his mother. He continued that, even though he said goodbye to his mother and everything, he has a sister and a brother, so he is completely safe. The woman supported his opinion and added that he shouldn't be sad, because in that case, she would also be sad. What she saw in the family picture could not be a mistake. Charlotte thought the boy depicted on the left was definitely Edgar Heinst. In the original, Edgar died in childhood, through the fault of the Marquis Petrian family, as he was mistaken for Carlyle. Marquis Petrian aimed directly at Carlyle because he was Rosetto, but Edgar looked identical to his brother and was therefore the victim of the attack. After that, all the details of the incident were revealed, and the family of Marquise Petrian was exterminated. But the real problem was Carlyle, his mother crumbling under the weight of guilt and sadness, and the realization that Edgar had died because of him. In order to save their last living son, the late Duke and his wife decided to erase Carlyle's memory so that he would not remember either Edgar or the fact that Rosetta was there. If they hadn't done that, they would have lost him too. Charlotte understood that the story about Edgar was not something she should read. Moreover, Carlyle is unlikely to believe in the existence of an older brother, about whom she doesn't even remember anything, but she still wants to tell something about the portrait. Until recently, Charlotte considered herself an outside observer who could leave the auditorium at any moment, but now that is no longer the case. The man was honest, she knows, and she wants to be just as honest with him. Even though she can't become his real wife, no one forbids her from being a true friend to him. Ms. Lanaya knocked on Carlyle's office and said there was something he needed to know. Milord invited her to his place, saying, "Come in." He wondered why Mrs. Lanaya had come to him in the middle of the night, perhaps because of what had happened that day. Carlyle asked if the girl had come to talk about the incident that happened today. Lania, I thought the butler had told everything, and wondered if Carlyle was talking about him. A question arose in Carlyle's mind, because he had no idea that the butler had something to tell him. Charlotte said she should have been the first to tell, but it seemed she was a step behind. She apologized for showing little Theo a portrait of his mother. Lania continued that there must be some reason why he doesn't want to show Theo the portrait, but the boy misses his mother very much, so she decided it would be right to show the portrait. After all, it seemed like he was endlessly wondering why he didn't have a mother. So she showed him that he had a mother who loved him endlessly. Charlotte apologized again for willingly going to the portrait with the boy, but she simply couldn't stand to look at the boy's sad face in silence. Carolyle asked if Theo was happy to see his mother's face. Charlotte replied that he was incredibly pleased with it. Seeing the mixed feelings on Carlyle's face, the girl decided to leave him alone so he could think things over. In parting, she said that she should have said this and apologized again for visiting him at night. Already at the door, Lania heard Heinz thank Theo for his support and care. She said that she didn't need to thank her because she simply did what the boy wanted. Wishing her a good night, she left the office. Although there was one more thing that really bothered her, and that was that she didn't tell the story about his twin brother Edgar. Although she understands that hiding something seems bad, she is not sure that she will ever be able to tell him about it. From all the thoughts, the Duke came to Theo's room. The little boy was sleeping. Carlyle was stroking his face, thinking that showing the boy his mother would hurt his already crystal heart even more. So he tried once again not to bring up the subject. Although in reality he himself understood that it was all just an excuse, he lacked confidence all the time, which is why he remained silent like a real coward. Suddenly, little Theo woke up. Carlyle apologized for waking him because he didn't want to disturb his sleep. The child smiled and said that they didn't even have time to eat dinner today, so he was very happy to see his brother. Carlyle asked about his brother's emotions about going with Charlotte to his mother's. The kid replied that his mother was very beautiful. He added that he used to miss his mother, but now everything is fine because he has a brother and sister and he loves them very much. Theo asked if they would all live together for a long time. Carlyle replied that they would always live together. Carlyle wondered how easily he had answered Theo's question, and realized that this thought had been in his head for a long time. On a subconscious level, the man wanted to always stay with Charlotte, although in reality, this was his strongest desire. He continues to think that perhaps the same woman who gave him the scarf will be able to warm him and Theo with her warmth and ease their loneliness. The next morning, the butler greeted Lania. He needed to show someone around. He introduced Sir Rowandro, a mage who had long served the Heinst family. It was he who sealed Carlyle's mana, and most likely it was he who erased the memories of Edgar. The sorcerer greeted him and shared that he had long wanted to meet Charlotte. The girl replied in the same way, but asked what the reason for his visit was. Suddenly, the man noticed that Theo was still afraid of him. Rowandro said that the young master had been facing many difficulties recently, so he came to check his mana. But the kid always avoided meeting him, so he asked for help. Lania would just need to get the boy in her arms and hug him tighter. the wizard showed them where to sit and exchanged strange glances with the butler. A bit of doubt appeared in the doe's mind, and remembering the original story, she assured them that the man was infinitely devoted to Carlyle, so he wouldn't harm the boy. Lania reassured Theo and said that it was just a test, and that after it was over, she would give him a chocolate bar. The kid held out his hand, and at that moment, the man began checking his mana. Lania again began to feel something in her stomach, as if something was moving. Suddenly, Theo fell back onto the sofa, after which the sorcerer took Lania's hand and began to say some kind of spell. But Lanaya didn't want this. Some strange energy was filling her body. Something strange was happening. Suddenly, the sorcerer and the butler began to ask the girl what exactly she remembered seeing in the room. Lania immediately realized that they were testing her, so she lied that she only saw a portrait of Carlyle's now-deceased parents, and also of him as a child. The sorcerer Roandro wondered if the girl had seen anything else strange. Lania said she had not seen anything like that, and asked what they meant. The sorcerer smiled and said that it was nothing special, then added that he had done his job and was forced to leave them. In parting, he said that he hoped that they would have the opportunity to meet again, and Lania replied that she was very grateful that he was looking after her, but wished to be careful on the way back. After that, Charlotte ran to the boy and started shaking him hard. She was worried about him and asked him to open his eyes. As soon as the boy woke up, Lania asked if he remembered that they had gone to see his mother yesterday. Theo replied that he saw both his mother and father and his older brother, who was very young. Lania asked if anyone was sitting next to Carlyle in that picture, but the little boy didn't understand what she was talking about. At that very moment, she was completely sure that they had erased Edgar's memory, just as Carlyle's memory had been erased before. But still, there was something she couldn't understand. Surprisingly, the spell didn't affect her, and most likely, it was because of the very energy she felt inside herself. If the question is related to magic, then she needs to ask a sorcerer about it. Charlotte said that yesterday, Theo was dabbling in magic, and when she tried to stop him, she felt mana moving in her body. This seemed strange to the magician, as there are no records of a suitable person capable of using nullification magic. The guy caused a fire in his hand and asked to put it out. Lania thought about the feeling of mana moving somewhere in her stomach area like yesterday. Suddenly, she felt something, but quickly turning around, she saw that nothing had happened. The young wizard assured her that there was nothing wrong with this, since it was a spell cancellation and unusual magic, and he recommended that she set aside more time in the future to practice with it. All day, Lania was out of sorts. It was written right on her face that something was wrong. At dinner, Carlyle asked his little brother what happened, but the Tao replied that his sister was in a bad mood and that it needed to be fixed. After thinking a little, the little boy ran up to the girl and asked her to look at the beautiful picture with his mom, dad, and little brother. But Lania thought Carlyle wasn't ready to see this picture again. But suddenly, he agreed with the boy. Theo ran ahead. Carlyle was supposed to follow, but he stopped for a moment and called Charlotte with him. She noticed that something had changed, because before the Duke had difficulty talking about his late mother. Seeing the painting again, the girl was convinced that they had again removed Edgar from the painting. It was clear from Carlyle's face that he was still in pain and that he still lacked the courage to look his mother in the eyes. After all, his mother is the very person he misses, and at the same time, memories of her cause him pain. The girl took his hand and said that everything was fine. If he still lacked courage, then there was no need to try to overcome himself, because emotional wounds do not heal so easily. She asked him not to pretend that he was coping and that everything was fine with him, because she was afraid that it would only get worse. The lady added that if they were together, the man would definitely feel better, so Carlyle could return to her. Suddenly, he took Lania's hand and said that he was also completely fine as long as they were together. After that, the man approached the painting. Theo pointed at the woman and said that Mom was very beautiful, and his older brother confirmed all this. Carlyle's expression was at once as sad as it had been on that same day 2 years ago, but also different. It was as if the sadness remained on his face, but a faint smile had appeared, which definitely meant that the wounds in his heart were healing a little. Now he looks relaxed, as if he has realized how futile his attempts to drown out his pain were. She was pleased to see that the family members he had tried to forget were returning to his heart, but still someone remained outside his heart. As in the past, no one knows about him. He is once again left in complete solitude. Lanaya continued to practice cancellation magic with Sir Ayin again, but there were no special results. The young wizard advised to sincerely make a wish, which was a rather ambiguous phrase. After that conversation, Theo went to look at the Duchess's portrait every day, and the fact that Edgar was always forgotten by everyone greatly worried Lanayas. The butler called my lord and said that the table was set. Charlotte saw how closely Robert was watching her. It seemed to her that he was checking to see if she had remembered something she shouldn't have. It was a calm but also stressful everyday life, as day after day flew by, and the martial arts tournament approached. The girl met with her brothers again and said that she would not be able to attend the tournament as it was impossible to properly provide security due to the large crowd. This greatly angered his brother, as this should not be a problem for those who bear the title of Duke, and he wondered if the skills of the Duke and his knights were really in such poor condition. But Charlotte said that wasn't the point, but she just didn't want to cause any trouble. Jake couldn't calm down at all. He said that if the girl continued in the same spirit soon, she wouldn't be able to go out at all. He asked if she wanted to spend her whole life locked up in the four walls of a mansion. In this situation, the second brother Isaac agreed with Jake's words. Charlotte is very confused, because even Isaac agreed with her brother's words. But she can't go to the martial arts tournament because she's worried about Theo and can't explain it. One of the brothers added that the holiday also regularly attends martial arts tournaments, so there's no need to worry too much about all this. After a little thought, Lanaya realized that this could be an opportunity to ask Saint Teresa about the magic of cancellation. Jake took up his position again and added that even the saint would attend the tournament, but Lanaya said that she couldn't. He thought that these were all the Duke's whims to keep her from leaving the mansion. Suddenly, in one moment, Charlotte said that she would leave, and there was surprise on her brother's face, because a moment ago she had been categorically against it. The girl assured her that she would definitely attend the martial arts tournament because she had thought it over carefully and came to the conclusion that her brother was absolutely right. Lanaya smiled in return and still didn't know how to tell Carlyle about it. At one of the dinners, the girl looked intently into the Duke's eyes and could not find a moment to tell him the news. Even Carlyle felt like the girl had been wanting to tell him something lately. Although she doesn't need to whine like a little puppy, she can just say everything at once, because in any case, his response will be positive. He asked if the girl had any problems. Charlotte said that she wanted to give the Duke a scarf. It was a gift from her to him, because even though he was not participating in the martial arts tournament, she still wanted to give him this scarf. Carlyle asked if she had really made this embroidery herself to give it to him. Lania replied that it was all true, and although she was not skilled enough in manual labor, she had done a very painstaking job. A sincere smile appeared on the Duke's face. He gladly accepted this gift. Lania added that there was no need to look for any hidden meaning in this, because she was simply embroidering on scarves for her brothers, and decided to make an extra one for him as well. Carlyle was very grateful for this, even in this case, because somehow she made this embroidery thinking of him. Charlotte was a little embarrassed, but was very happy that her husband liked her gift. Finally, she got brave and added her request. The girl said that this year, her older brothers reached the finals of the martial arts tournament, so she would like to visit the arena to cheer for them. But she was very worried about Theo. Carlyle wondered why the girl was so worried. Linnea replied that there were a lot of people in the arena, and there was commotion everywhere. She was afraid that she would lose Theo in the crowd. Besides, there might be people there who want to get rid of him. The Duke said that she didn't have to worry about that, because he would personally protect both her and Theo. Carlyle assured her that she should just enjoy what she saw that day. Even though the Duke said he would protect the girl without any apparent meaning, her heart was beating incredibly fast. Arriving at the arena, little Theo was surprised, because the arena looked incredibly huge, and it was also the first time he had seen so many people. Seeing the boy's happy face, Lania realized that she had done the right thing. The heroine's gaze fell on the crown prince and the saint. She did not expect that she would occupy one of the 3 special places among such important people. This is all the influence of the Haynes family, and they are accompanied not only by knights, but also by Sir Ayin. Since these are special places, the security here is especially vigilant. Looking down, the boy saw Mrs. Lania's two brothers, Jake and Isaac. He wished them luck and asked them not to get hurt. Meanwhile, Carlyle was observing the situation around him and saw that Charlotte and Theo were having a good time. But among the crowd, it seemed to him that there were some suspicious people. An unknown silhouette appeared for a second and suddenly disappeared. The ceremony began, and His Majesty the Crown Prince began to give his speech. He thanked everyone who attended these games and wished all participants good health. Since Theo did not understand much of this speech, he asked Charlotte to explain to him what the Crown Prince had said, after which Saint Teresa took the floor. She blessed everyone and wished that accidents would pass them by, after which she sprinkled small sparkles on the arena. The martial arts tournament officially began, while the crowd around was shouting and watching everything closely. The strange man in the hood was getting closer and closer. Mrs. Lania and the boy sat and watched everything. The girl was surprised, because it was the first time she had seen a fight from such a close distance. Meanwhile, one of the assistants could not calm down. She was delighted with the knight's sword swings and defensive actions, but to the others, it seemed like ordinary basic skills that any knight possesses. Charlotte herself heard the assistant's argument. She asked how they managed to get here. The girls replied that they had recently arrived because as soon as they found out about Theo's presence, they couldn't help but come here. Charlotte saw a strange feeling on Carlyle's face. He was very worried and was scanning the entire horizon. The duel between Sir Isaac Lania and Sir Elliot began before the duel began. Theo wished him luck again. Suddenly, he came up, grabbed Charlotte by the shoulder, and ordered her to immediately leave her place and move to a safer place, and Selina would guard them. At that moment, a loud explosion rang out. The crowd around them became very anxious and began to run and scream in panic. The Lady Saint and His Majesty the Crown Prince began to be led to a safe place by many guards. Little Theo was very worried and afraid, but Charlotte assured him that everything was fine, and Selina had to take them to a safe place. As soon as they approached the door leading to the exit, they were blocked by magic. Sir Ain tried to open it, and his magic didn't work. Carlyle ordered Charlotte and Theo to be teleported to safe territory, and he would somehow manage. He spoke as if these were his last words, and he would never see Charlotte again. The girl asked why he was saying that, and he said that everything would be fine with him, and there was no need to worry. During the teleportation, Lady Lania handed Theo over to the sorcerer, and herself stepped away from the circle, after which Sir Ain and Carlyle's younger brother teleported away. The Duke was very angry because Charlotte's safety worried him very much. He could not allow her loss, because even the thought of it scared him immensely. They held hands, and Carlyle promised that he would protect the girl until the end and do everything possible to leave this place safely. At that very moment, a ball of fire flew at them, Carl covering the girl with it. Having received severe injuries, he asked Miss Lania to go to the exit. A firestorm appeared behind the man and approached them. Time was running out, and she had to make a decision. Either leave Carlyle and save herself, or use the magic of cancellation, and she wasn't sure about the latter. All she decided was that she couldn't live without Carlyle, so she used the magic of cancellation. Perhaps the danger was the key factor in the magic working. And in the end, everything worked out, the fire tornado instantly dissipating. Carlyle was surprised, because he didn't expect the fiery whirlwind to disappear instantly, while Lania collapsed from powerlessness. The girl woke up in her bed. She felt a pleasant coolness touching her face. It was Carlyle's hands. He was very happy to see the girl coming to her senses. But Charlotte only cared about whether Carlyle was okay. The girl was crying, and this moment was very sensitive for them, because the two of them sacrificed themselves for each other. From so many emotions and experiences, the couple hugged each other and didn't want to let go. The man said that everything was fine with him. From the very beginning, the wound was not serious, and thanks to the filling from the saint's blessing, not even a small scar remained on his body. Theo is also safe, the prince added. Still, Charlotte was curious about how things were with Emma the señorita and her brothers. Carlyle stroked the girl's cheek and said that she shouldn't worry, because thanks to her, everyone is safe and sound. The saint entered the room. She was really waiting for Lania to wake up. She asked my lord for permission to speak to Charlotte alone. The saint wanted to know if the girl had previously experienced an act of transforming magic into nothingness. The saint added that it was Charlotte who resolved the situation that arose. Our heroine was very surprised, because in her opinion she could not dispel such strong magic. The saint smiled and said that it was all true, and besides, the girl was able to solve it all without using nullification magic. She remembered the words she had said earlier about Charlotte's fate being two-way, and that she needed to be careful. At that moment, Teresa still didn't understand what our heroine needed to be careful of, but now it all became clear to her. The fact is that if a girl uses her power, a blow is struck on the thread of fate, as a result of which she becomes thinner. If this power is used, the thread of fate will break, and the girl will die. Charlotte asked what to do in such cases, because there would most likely be many more threats to Theo's life and hers, and she would have to use this power again. Teresa said that having people she wanted to protect made it even more difficult to use this power, because at this rate the girl wouldn't be able to stay alive. Teresa said that she was forced to leave the girl, and Charlotte herself was in despair. She didn't know how to behave or how to collect her thoughts. Suddenly, little Theo ran into the room, all in tears. He missed her very much and was worried about her. The maid ran after the boy, thinking that something had happened to her, and she was also very scared. They were so worried that they both fell by the girl's bed and started crying loudly because they didn't know how they could survive such a loss. From the maid's words, Charlotte learned that they decided to keep her power a secret. Our heroine asked where Sir Ain was, but after teleporting, he exhausted all his strength and lost consciousness. He has only recently come to his senses and is most likely talking to the Duke. Carlyle was talking to Sir Ain, wondering why the spell holding the door didn't dispel the world of his sorcerer's power. He had a lot of questions because it turns out he supported a sorcerer who couldn't even open a door. Carlyle ordered the whole truth about that day to be told. He grabbed his sword and ordered them to hurry. The man approached the sorcerer and suspected him. He wanted to know absolutely everything, because maybe he didn't specifically use magic to destroy them all. Sir Ain swore that he was not guilty, and that the whole situation was much deeper and needed to be understood for a long time. The last thing the sorcerer could offer was his oath of loyalty, and if he was a traitor, his heart would break into pieces. With these words, the sorcerer convinced the Duke that he was not guilty. After that, Carlyle began to think, because Sir Ain is one of the most talented magicians in the Empire, and he couldn't do anything with that spell, which means there is an even stronger sorcerer that they don't know about. After that, Carlyle took his head and said that the wizard could go away. Just at that moment, Carlyle's subordinate entered the office. The Duke wondered if he had found out who this scoundrel was who dared to cause such trouble. The subordinate had information and a suspect the case involved Maurice Fedoro. This is Sir Rowandro's disciple. I didn't understand how a disciple of such a bright man could commit an attack. But the subordinate said that the one who committed such an attack during the tournament was not a simple, self-confident wizard. This magician's powers are so powerful that even Ain's spells were powerless. This means that sorcerers of this level must constantly report on their movements and activities. At the moment, nothing is known about the whereabouts of Maurice Fedoro. He ordered that from today, the residence would become his location, and added that everything needed to be prepared for the move. Meanwhile, Charlotte was lying in bed with little Theo. It was clear that he was very tired because he was taking care of her. While she was unconscious, he took care of her in every way possible, and after she regained consciousness, he constantly gave her water and personally supervised her. In the dream, the boy asked Charlotte not to leave him alone. The girl thought it was very cute and kissed his head. Entered the room, he was worried if everything was okay with the girl and couldn't find a place for himself, so he decided to check it out himself. He was glad to see the girl healthy and unharmed. Charlotte replied that she was almost back to normal. Carlyle said it was a bit unexpected, and if she would mind moving into his residence. Since this place is protected by a magic circle, they will be much safer there. Charlotte asked if it was because of what happened at the tournament, and the man confirmed that this was the main reason. Carlyle added that the guild leader Daros, who previously wanted to kill Theo, said that the Duke had made many enemies in his lifetime. The man was worried about the thought of Charlotte and Theo being in danger, and felt guilty about it. The girl took his hand and said that he was not to blame for anything, because last time it was Carlyle who saved her, not someone else. There were strange emotions on the Duke's face. He was deeply surprised. Charlotte asked if everything was okay with him, and asked to see where he hurt. Carlyle believed that this was not necessary because everything was fine with him. He was more worried about her. Charlotte stood up abruptly and said that she was fine and that she was a tough nut to crack. Mrs. Linnea began to ask if Carlyle was laughing at her because she could see it in his eyes. But the Duke replied that he would never allow himself to do such a thing, while Theo mumbled something again. A little later, the baby said in his sleep that he wanted chocolate, which made the couple laugh. In the morning, Charlotte met with Aine. She was practicing the magic cancellation spell again. The fire in the magician's hands disappeared. He was very surprised because the girl was not casting a spell, but rather blocking the mana in the caster's body, probably because she was a suitable person. But Charlotte didn't find it strange, because that day she blocked Roandro's very mana. It was similar to calming Theo's magical power. Later, a maid came to Charlotte and said that everything was ready for her departure. The girl was already gathered. What she learned here gave many answers, but raised even more questions that would have to be resolved in the future. The girl came out in a beautiful new outfit. Theo and Carlyle were happy to see her. The man asked if the girl had said goodbye to her brothers. The lady replied that she had heard enough of their mutterings about her safety. Charlotte was surprised, because Carlyle even cared about her brothers. She was surprised that no one understood how sensitive the man was to them. Together, they formed a magic circle and teleported. A moment later, Charlotte saw the Heinz family estate. It was of incredible size and beauty. Inside, there were many fountains and greenhouses. Everything looked like a fairy tale castle. Charlotte couldn't come to her senses because there was so much interesting stuff here. Carlyle thought it was funny. He hid his smile with his hand. Mrs. Linnea noticed that he was laughing at her again, and little Theo asked him not to do that again. Carlyle immediately made a serious face and said that there was nothing like that. He added that she was wrong, like last time. Sir Roandro approached them. He was glad to see Carlyle in good humor. He also greeted Miss Linnea separately and added that they had not seen each other for a long time. Surprisingly, the sorcerer checked again to see if Linnea remembered anything about the portrait. As soon as his doubts were dispelled, he apologized and said that he had accidentally remembered something unrelated to her, because with his age, his memory often began to fail him. This angered Carlyle, and he hoped that the wizard would not answer the questions he asked later in the same way. At the table, the Duke asked where the magician's apprentice, Maurice Fedora, was. The sorcerer wondered why he was interested in the whereabouts of that child. He ordered the old man to clearly answer the questions posed, especially since the words of the Oath of Allegiance were engraved on the magician's heart. The sorcerer replied that the child was looking for the right person. He said he did this so they would be prepared for any surprises, because you never know what might happen. Carlyle wondered why the old man hadn't told him about his plan. The old man did not want to answer for a long time, but still under pressure from the wing, he said that it was the late Duke's order and could not answer anything more. A strange emotion appeared on the owner's face. He didn't understand what his father could be hiding from him, and in the Duke's opinion, such an operation could be dangerous, because during the report, the fact that Theo was a Rosetta could be revealed. Carlyle ordered Maurice Fedora to be summoned immediately because he needed to find out something. A boy entered the classroom, angry because his teacher had told him to work harder a week ago and was now distracting him from his work. But still, he must fulfill the teacher's will. Suddenly, the young man heard Mrs. Lani and little Theo doing something in the greenhouse, and he wondered what kind of female voice that was. He looked to the side and realized that he was seeing this girl for the first time. The boy saw the magician's apprentice and wondered who he was. The young man happily replied that he was studying with Mr. Roandro. Only one family member of this old man made Theo immediately start hiding behind his skirt. But the young wizard apologized and said he didn't want to scare the little one. Lania wondered if the young man knew Sir Aine, but the young man's mind was filled with thoughts of how beautiful Charlotte was. He was delighted with her silky hair and shining eyes. Without thinking twice, the guy took Ms. Lania's hand and asked if she would like to have a close relationship with him. There was a moment of silence in the hall. The girl did not understand what was happening. As soon as she came to, she screamed loudly in confusion. Theo ran up to the young wizard and snatched the young lady out of his hands. Maurice wanted to justify himself and prove that he was not a bad person, so he stepped back and bumped into Carlyle. He asked what he had done here. Anger was visible on my lord's face. The young man did not understand why he was behaving this way. Mr. Roandro wondered where his student's manners were and ordered him to greet His Highness's bride, Charlotte Lania. The frightened boy understood everything. The young man was shocked to have confessed his feelings to the Duke's bride. Carlyle ordered him to follow, while the sorcerer's apprentice had already said goodbye to social life. The three of them sat down at the table. Carlyle asked if the student had come to the capital a week ago. Maurice was surprised and replied that he was not coming. He was curious why the Duke asked about it. The young man learned that an attack had been carried out that very day, and he was very scared because His Majesty the Crown Prince and the saints were present there. He asked who could have done such a thing. The Duke replied that he was just trying to find that bastard. The guy added that he needed to be found and executed. Carlyle agreed with him and said that as soon as he saw him, he planned to immediately cut his throat. An epiphany came to the young man. He realized that it was him who the Duke suspected. He immediately fell to his knees and began to swear that it was definitely not him, and that he had no involvement in the incident. But Carlyle had no reason to believe him. Then the boy added that a week ago he had been in the Dallas area because he had been ordered to find the right persons. Carlyle wondered if anyone could confirm this. The young man was so scared that he replied that the teacher had ordered him not to reveal his location. He turned to the teacher, and he remained silent. Carlyle threw the box at the young man's feet and ordered it to be opened right away. Depending on whether it opens or not, it will become clear whether the young man is a fearless freak. The guy had a lot of thoughts in his head. He was very worried he didn't know how to act in this situation. Maurice hesitated for a long time because he didn't know whether opening the box would make the situation worse or clear him of all charges. But Carlyle knew that the box was not simple, because some time ago he had specially closed the box with one of his strongest spells, and among those who could use this magic equivalent to Ain's magic, only Maurice was there. He is the only one whose whereabouts on the day of the tournament were unknown. If the boy manages to open the box with his magic, he will have to pay for it with his life. The boy tried his best, but he couldn't open the box because the spell was too strong. He began to beg for mercy and say that it really wasn't him, and he wasn't there. The sorcerer Roandro added that if the Duke continued to suspect the young man, he would prepare everything for the oath of allegiance. Maurice almost lost consciousness from such tension. He sincerely thanked him and wanted to leave. But Carlyle asked him to stay, but his teacher himself decided to leave the office. The Duke asked how things were going with the search for a suitable person. The young man replied that the search was not successful because it was difficult to find someone who fit all the criteria. The man wanted to know more. The student told him that the right person. This is someone who has experienced death, who once truly stopped breathing. Carlyle was shocked because it turns out that Charlotte had to experience death. The student added that besides him, there is someone else who is looking for those who have had to find themselves on the verge of death. This conversation left Carlyle with more questions than answers. After this conversation, the man asked if the young man had learned anything about the people who had committed the attack. The young man replied that he wanted to do this and was summoned to the residence. Despite this, he has a hunch. Rumors have reached the young man about a young lady named Penelope Ohan. About 7 years ago, she fell into the water and almost died. Carlyle guessed that she might be the right person. The young man confirmed this and added that there was a high probability that those people would also be heading to Lady Ohane. Carlyle ordered information to be gathered about her and let her go. In parting, he added that he would not dare appear near Mrs. Lania if his life was important to him. After this conversation, he was in deep thought. It seemed like everything was just getting better, and then all the problems started again. Feeling a characteristic pain inside, he realized that the day of his mother's death was coming soon. Carlyle had missed a meal for the second day, while Theo wondered why his little brother wasn't eating breakfast with them. Lanaya replied that he has a lot of different things to do now. Suddenly, a maid ran into the dining room and told Charlotte that she knew why the owner had refused the food. Hearing this, the girl suggested that Theo go to Carlyle and eat with him. When they went into his office, they set out delicious food for him and invited him to eat together. Carlyle replied that he wasn't hungry at all, and Theo didn't understand why, because he hadn't eaten since yesterday. He thanked Charlotte and refused. The girl had her own way of doing it. She said that if he didn't eat, she wouldn't either. She added that, as a friend, she couldn't just watch this in silence. This manipulation was successful, and the Duke began to eat. But during the meal, he thought about their relationship because they still hadn't agreed on who was right for each other. Theo shouted loudly because it started raining. It aggravated the general situation because Carlisle was already depressed, and the rain also joined in. The girl tried with all her might to diffuse the situation, but apparently even the heavens themselves behave like this because they know about the anniversary of the death. It was only 2 years ago that the guy lost his mother, and honestly, that's a pretty short period of time for her to heal from the pain of loss. The Duke's face was the same as it had been 2 years ago, small and vulnerable. Lania told Theo that she would leave him with Emma and go to his brother's and return. It seemed that the wounds that didn't heal were about to knock him off his feet, so she couldn't help but go to him. The girl wanted to support him in some way, but she didn't even know what words to say to her husband to comfort him, because the wrong comfort could make the wound deeper. She saw that Carlisle was holding back tears, even at a moment when he couldn't afford to cry. The man added that it was pouring rain today. He might be alone, so he said to take Theo. But before he could finish, he suddenly saw that Charlotte was crying. He suddenly turned to her and asked what had caused her tears, but she said he wouldn't believe it. The girl added that she didn't want him to hold back tears until his eyes were red. She wanted him to pretend that nothing special had happened. She asked him to just cry, taking his hand. She said that everything would be okay. The girl added that although it will take a little time, eventually the day will come when the sun will peek through the clouds. And one day the time will come when the cold and unbearable pain in the soul will pass. Charlotte said he could cry peacefully whenever he wanted. After these words, the man's eyes filled with tears. Immediately after that, he hugged her with all his strength. After the funeral ceremony, they sat together on the steps. Charlotte couldn't look at him, even though she wanted to. Suddenly, Carlisle thanked him, but the girl replied that it was not necessary, because as a friend, she should support him in a difficult moment. He directly asked if she thought they were just friends. The girl apologized because she thought that after the martial arts tournament, they had become closer and could be called friends. Carlisle, without saying anything, got down on one knee and kissed her hand. After that, he asked her to think a little and say again if they were really just friends. A bunch of memories flashed through the girl's mind. She didn't know what to do. Suddenly, she saw the mana that had been sealed inside Carlisle's body being released. In the original, the seal broke after Theo died, but because he's still alive, it's likely the seal itself is starting to break down. However, their situation is different from the original work, so now that Penelope is not around, our heroine is the only one who can do something. The next day, our heroine wanted to concentrate on learning to manage her energy. She thought about the streams of mana moving through her body. She almost succeeded, and it would seem that with a little more effort, the spell she is practicing will come true. But as always, at one point, she fails. She had been practicing for several days in a row, but there was not a single bit of progress, and the girl was sad about it. Suddenly, little Theo visited her. He screamed as if he was betrayed by seeing her and ran to hug her. Charlotte smiled at the boy and asked how he was taking care of his garden. The child replied that he was doing great. Suddenly, the boy enthusiastically said that he had a question. He first sat on the girl's lap and asked her what she loved most in the world besides him. Charlotte thought for a moment and suddenly remembered that she loved flowers immensely, namely the yellow flowers that bloomed in Lania's house where she lived before. He wondered if it was the same flower that was embroidered on his sister's scarf. The boy, having learned the information he needed, quickly ran away. Our heroine laughed at this. The boy has been asking a lot of such questions lately. The lady focused on her task again. She still couldn't make the magic stone. The good decision was to ask someone for help. Suddenly, an incredible idea popped into her head, and she wondered why she hadn't thought of it before. The girl chased after Maurice, who was banned from communicating with her or having any contact with her. Fearing for his life, he was afraid to even look at her, let alone approach her. Rondo's apprentice informed the lady about this and said that he would never come near her under any circumstances and did not say why. While running away from the lady, he unexpectedly slipped and fell. Charlotte caught up with him and asked if he was okay. The young student asked the woman why she was so persistently pursuing him. The girl smiled and said that he was the only one who could help her. The young man looked at her in fear, confused. Lania managed to tell him about her problem, and the young man even knew how to solve it. But as soon as he remembered Carlisle, he immediately got scared and said that he couldn't help with anything. He added that to help him, he had to take her hand. But if the Duke found out, his head would fly off his shoulders. Charlotte assured him that he shouldn't worry, because he wasn't the type to pay attention to such trifles, although the student thought the same way, and everything turned out to be wrong. Without thinking twice, the girl forcibly took the student's hand and asked what to do now. The young man looked at her in fear. He didn't know what to do, and Lania asked him to help. The girl said she would keep everything a secret from the Duke. After a moment of reflection, the student realized that he had no other choice, so he said that this must definitely remain a secret from him. Charlotte said she would keep her mouth shut. The student was grateful for that. They held hands, and Theo saw it. The angry boy immediately ran to Carlisle's office. Not understanding what the situation was, he told his brother that his uncle, the magician, was holding his sister's hand. At first, the Duke didn't understand who exactly took his bride's hand, and thought it was Aine. But Theo told him that it was another magician, even though he didn't know his name and recognized him well. The little boy said that he was a magician, with hair the color of snow, and Carlisle immediately understood who he was talking about. Watching as Maurice ignored his warning, he was sure that the student had completely lost his mind. The man began to think about different things in his head. He decided that he needed to take different measures. Theo looked at the scarf that Lania had given Carlisle. It depicted the same flowers that grew in her ancestral home. The boy asked if his brother had received this handkerchief from Charlotte, and he agreed that it was from her. Carlisle said that he wanted to give the girl a gift in return. Meanwhile, Aine and Charlotte were practicing, and suddenly, the moment she had been constantly failing at was successful. A blue stone formed in her hands, but a second later, the stone also disappeared. It was strange, and for Aine, it was the first time he had encountered something like this. Carlisle entered the room and asked Charlotte to give him some time alone. The girl thanked Aine for her help today. He replied that there was no need to thank her and promised to find a solution as soon as possible. Our heroine thanked him profusely and said goodbye. Carlisle looked at the magician angrily, but he didn't understand what had happened. He was very scared and ran away. The couple was heading through the greenhouse. The guy wanted to show something and hoped the girl would like it. Opening the door to the greenhouse, our heroine saw a whole field of yellow flowers, the same ones that could only be seen in the Lania fiefdom. She was shocked that this was all prepared by Carlisle. He admitted that Theo had told him how much the girl missed home. Tears of joy welled up in Lania's eyes, and her husband asked her not to cry, because he didn't show her these flowers to make her sad. That girl said that these were not tears of sadness, but tears of joy, because she was very grateful to him. But Carlisle's gifts didn't end there. He wanted to give something else. Pulling out the box, there was a diamond ring inside. He began to tell me that at first he didn't understand what was going on, but now he was able to understand his feelings. He was completely convinced that from the moment she calmed him down, crying like a child, and saying that everything would be okay, although such words are often used in conversations, it was unusual for him to hear them, because no one had said such phrases to him. There may come cold and unbearable days in his life again, but if the girl is with him at such moments, he believes that everything will be fine. He asked Charlotte to give him her hand, but suddenly, our heroine became very upset. She said that she could not be a good match for him because he should meet someone else and not her. She believes that it would be much more correct to maintain their friendship. But Carlisle wasn't surprised by such answers and said that the girl just needed time to understand who was the most suitable match for him. He handed her a box with a ring and said she could wait as long as she wanted. A lot of time passed. Many maids walked around Heinz's estate. They all looked worried, and each had their own business. Our heroine was seen with a ring on her finger. She was also checking the list to make sure everything was prepared. Suddenly, Ellie ran up to her, because a birthday cake had just been delivered. Mrs. Lania felt relieved, and the cake was delivered without any problems, the chocolate one that Theo loves very much. Suddenly, the maid said that another gift had been delivered. The girl could not understand what kind of gift it was. Suddenly, someone touched her from behind, and the lady was very scared. It was Irina and Danny. They came to surprise Theo on his birthday. Charlotte was very grateful to them for this. She added that she would be happy to see them. A little boy came running today's birthday. He was very interested to see the gift that had arrived. As soon as little Danny and Theo saw each other, they immediately shouted each other's names. and a moment later, they ran to hug. The women hadn't seen children so energetic in a long time. Charlotte added that Irina did the right thing by coming. They sat at the table while the children played in the garden. The ladies remembered the old days when they were a little younger, children played in the sand just like they do now. Irina turned around and saw that the greenhouse now had a bunch of beautiful yellow flowers. They reminded her of the same flowers that Charlotte had embroidered on her scarf. The girl asked if this was the Duke's initiative. Lania said that it was the Duke's idea because she misses her hometown very much. A moment later, the woman saw the wedding ring on our heroine's ring finger. Moreover, it had a blue diamond, and it was very difficult to find such a piece of jewelry. I didn't even know about Lanaya, but Irina told me that it's hard to count on the fingers of one hand the number of jewelry workshops that do such delicate work, because there are almost none. Irina added that the Duke probably really values Charlotte if he decided to express his attention in this way. She noted that they look great together. Now, Charlotte understood why Carlyle had asked her to wear this ring, because otherwise the others would have doubts about their engagement. The girl suddenly realized that after that very conversation, she didn't have to cross over from Carlyle. It's strange because as soon as he crept into someone else's heart and caused a storm of emotions, he immediately disappeared from sight. Although this is logical, because she refused him, and seeing her would be uncomfortable for him. From all these thoughts, the girl covered her face with her hands and could not come to her senses. Irina did not understand what was happening to her. Our heroine justified herself and said that she was just very worried because Theo's birthday celebration would begin soon. But still, the girl had something to worry about because Carlyle would be present at the birthday party. The main celebration began, and he was delighted with how big and beautiful the chocolate cake he was given. The maid and everyone who arrived for his birthday began to congratulate him. Everyone started presenting their gifts, and the first was Mrs. Lania. The kid was glowing with happiness. He wanted to open this gift immediately. Opening the box, he saw a soft toy. When he took it out, he realized that it was his favorite fairy tale character, namely the main character of his favorite book, The Bunny Toto. At this time, Carlyle entered the room. He also had a gift. The smile on his face disappeared when the man met Charlotte. He greeted her coldly, but when he saw the ring on her finger, he smiled again. He sat down next to his brother and wished him a happy birthday, handing him a gift. The kid couldn't help but be curious, so he started to open it too. Surprisingly, they gave him another Bunny Toto. The couple looked at each other and laughed. Theo, meanwhile, was very happy to have two bunnies. Many people were present at the celebration itself. The children ate endless amounts of sweets and looked very happy. Surprisingly, on an afternoon filled with a huge amount of joy, our heroine was quite sad. She finished her drink and decided to get some fresh air on the terrace. She almost slipped as she walked to the exit, but Carlyle caught her. He asked if she was okay. The girl was embarrassed and replied that everything was fine. The man suggested that she go out for some fresh air, and the girl replied that she was just about to do so. As she was walking to the exit, she felt Carlyle hold her and tell her he would go with her. The man added that although he was ready to wait as long as necessary, he said that he did not want to let go of her hand for a moment. He also promised that from now on and forever, he would give her only the best. He said that there were too many people present and asked not to make him an emotionally unstable guy who was unable to even see off his bride. The girl couldn't argue, so she agreed. The two of them went out onto the terrace. It was a beautiful evening by the sea. Carlyle wondered what Charlotte was thinking so hard about. The lady told me what she thought about her own birthday and about the seaweed soup her mother had made that day. But she never got to eat that seaweed soup because she was late for class in the morning and didn't even touch it. If she had known that this would be the last time, she would have behaved completely differently and would have eaten it all with pleasure and would have certainly thanked him. She misses her mother so much that she burst into tears from sadness. Carlyle wondered why she hadn't said anything about it if she missed it so much. She said that even if she missed him, she would never be able to see him again. And even if she talked about it, she would want him even more. The man hugged her, and the girl started crying into his shirt. Carlyle apologized because she missed her family so much, and he never even thought about her. She looked around in tears and hugged each other. The next morning, she woke up in her own room. It's strange because she doesn't remember how she got here. But suddenly, she heard a familiar voice. These were her brothers. Jake was as always very noisy and very happy to see his sister Isaac, demanded that he be more restrained. Parents were right behind them. She was incredibly happy to see them all. They all sat down at the table together. Our heroine asked what business the whole family had come to the duchy for. Mom said that the Duke urgently sent someone to them and prepared a carriage to take them to the ducal residence. The older Lady Lania said that she felt how much Carlisle cherished the girl. She had worried a little about it before, but now she sees that her worries were in vain. The heroine realized that Carlisle had drawn his conclusions and invited her parents. She added that he was indeed very sensitive. Her father said he heard that the girl had been injured during a martial arts tournament and asked if everything was okay now. Lania replied that everything was fine. Now Jake, as usual, couldn't calm down and said that his sister lived so far away from them, and when they arrived, she wasn't even happy about it. Isaac reprimanded him again and asked him to be his age. But suddenly, Jake said that Isaac himself was worried about his sister and talked about her every day. Suddenly, Carlisle entered the room. Theo was happy to see him. Mr. Heinst thanked the Lania family for coming such a long way to get here. But the girl's father said that there was no need to thank her, because it was Carl who took care of making sure they could use the mana portal. The couple exchanged glances, and there was a sincere smile on their faces. The Duke apologized for interrupting their conversation, because he had come to say hello and would now leave them again. Afterwards, Lania asked him to stop, adding that she was sincerely grateful for all of this. And it's incredibly nice both for the flowers planted and for the invitation to her family member's residence. The man was happy to hear this and was ready to do anything for her. Suddenly, little Theo called his mistress Lania and told her to come back quickly, otherwise he would eat all the chocolate. The couple said goodbye, but Lania couldn't just take it and walk away. Surprisingly, Carlisle really kept his word. He was ready to do absolutely anything for her. During the week that the family was at the Duke's residence, it truly felt like home. She felt as if she had found another family. Late in the evening, when she turned off the light, she saw that Theo had opened the door. He crouched down next to her on the bed and said he was scared. The little boy couldn't sleep because he was worried that wolves would come to his room. Charlotte assured him not to worry about it and suggested they sleep together. She covered the baby and said that everything was fine because Toto and she were nearby. But still, the girl couldn't understand why something like this was happening behind the door. She put on her slippers and wanted to go check. But Theo said that you can't go out because it's a ghost that howls and knocks. Charlotte was so scared that goosebumps ran down her skin. Suddenly, she started knocking. Theo was very scared, but she assured him that everything was fine and he needed to open the door. Suddenly, Carlisle appeared at the door. The tension dropped and she was glad it was him and not a thief or someone else. She told me about the ghost and was worried about it. Mrs. Lania told Carlisle about his little brother's fears. The kid looked really scared and huddled close to the girl. He looked at her and, realizing that everything was okay, told her that he was going to see you, but Theo asked him to stay with them because he was afraid. Charlotte added that Carlisle could stay until he fell asleep. The Duke apologized for not coming into the room and making the bed. Theo fell asleep, and Carlisle wondered if Charlotte had said goodbye to her family properly. The girl said that they had a great time here, and she also believes that even 100 times would not be enough to sincerely express her gratitude. Carlisle said that this was not necessary. Seeing that Theo had fallen asleep, he decided to get up and go to his room. Suddenly, through his sleep, Theo pulled Carlisle, and he fell right on top of Mistress Lania. They found themselves in a rather unusual position and felt very awkward. The whole atmosphere and emotions led to the fact that they were about to kiss. Suddenly, the Duke pulled himself together and said he was leaving, apologizing. Ms. Lania was left alone, completely red and overwhelmed with emotion. Meanwhile, Mr. Heinst couldn't believe he had behaved like this after promising not to rush. His assistant saw that something was wrong with him and asked what was wrong with him, but Carlisle replied that everything was fine. They have so far made no progress in finding the person behind the attack on the martial arts tournament, although a very detailed investigation is underway. It is practically impossible to bypass all sources of information in all empires, and thieves somehow manage to do it. Someone for some unknown reason wants to kill Theo. Meanwhile, the thieves did not rest. The unknown in the cloak demanded explanations from his subordinate because he had not coped with a single task. The subordinate began to justify himself, saying that the Heinst mansion was under the influence of ancient magic, so both physical and magical attacks were impossible there. Until the Duke leaves the residence, it will be difficult to launch an attack. The leader of the bandits got tired of listening to this because he thought it was unimportant nonsense and took out his sword. Immediately after that, the subordinate began to beg for mercy, but the latter killed him. He asked the rest of his subordinates their opinion on whether they agreed with their dead comrade. One of the subjects said that it was easier to get into the residence ourselves and whispered a detailed plan in his ear. The man said that this was excellent advice. To make his plan a reality, the thief in the cape took out a red stone and ordered the messenger to send this valuable thing. Meanwhile, Charlotte was practicing magic again, but she was again plagued by failures. She had forgotten herself at the same moment several times. As soon as the magic stone takes on its magical form, it immediately shatters into pieces. Ayin also didn't understand why this was happening, because if the girl didn't have the ability to create magic stones, she wouldn't be able to give him shape. But her stone has clear contours. It's strange because Charlotte's mana doesn't manifest as magic. It's only used to calm mana. The sorcerer thought, and said that most likely, the process of making a magic stone for such people must be different from others. In other words, something is missing in order to complete the ritual. The girl sat in thought, because in the original story, Penelope did not need any special ingredients or circumstances. She never had any difficulty creating magic stones. All the time and attention was spent taking care of the mansion, or spending time with Carlyle, which is essentially the same thing she is doing now. But it turns out that there is one condition missing that prevents her from creating the stone. The lady was furious. Ayin thought about going to the host's library. He added that perhaps there are books out there about the right person that would be helpful. Charlotte and Carlyle went to the library and started looking for a suitable book. The man took out one and said that it would be the most suitable because it was related to magic stones. While handing over the book, the couple touched each other and became very embarrassed. Charlotte remembered the same situation when Carlyle was above her in bed, and they meet for the first time since that incident. The owner wondered why she suddenly started looking for books about magic stones. The lady replied that she wanted to make a magic stone to give to Theo. She asked if Carlyle was sleeping well, and if he didn't have headaches. He replied that everything was fine with him, and that he was more worried about him and Theo. He said that he had recently received a message from Maurice. He had found someone who was looking for a suitable person, a boy with blue eyes. The man added that if our heroine sees a blonde with blue eyes, she should immediately run away. Carlyle asked where Theo was now, and the girl replied that he was taking a nap. The man asked to warn Theo about this as well, just in case. A strange silhouette looked out the window, watching the little boy. Immediately afterwards, he woke up and saw the kitten. It was unusual with big blue eyes and a red collar, with an emerald in the middle. The kid was very happy for him and wanted to pet him. The child thought that it was very dangerous for a cat to be alone. Theo wanted to open the window and remembered his brother's words, which forbade him to do so when the boy was alone in the room. The kitten meowed, and the baby melted immediately, opening the window. As soon as the boy touched the strange stone on the cat's collar, energy was released. Charlotte and Carlyle sensed something was wrong. They immediately went to Theo. The maids could not enter the room, no matter how hard they tried. The door could not be opened. Theo was locked inside. As expected, the door was heavily cursed, but Charlotte managed to break it down with her strength. Ayin immediately entered into a magical battle. Everything around him was burning with fire, created with the help of magic. It was created by the young owner Theo himself. Despite all the warnings from Teresa about the dangers of using special powers, Linnea still has to save the boy even at the cost of her own life. Mrs. Linnea said that she was going to look for the boy, because if he had a mana release, then she should be with him. Carlyle couldn't let her go there alone. She protected him with a magical barrier, and they went into the room together. The couple saw the boy crying on the floor where everything was on fire. They agreed to run on the count of 3. Running through the fire, the girl grabbed a little boy who was in tears. But another problem arose. She could not calm the flow of his mana, and in the meantime, the boy was in great pain. Suddenly, Theo lost consciousness. It all seemed very strange. The girl was lost in thought. She didn't want to be weak, like in her past life. She wanted to help and save everyone. Suddenly, Carlyle's mana began to resonate with Theo's mana and calm him down. Carlyle said that everything was okay now and kissed Charlotte. After all this, he began to talk to his magicians, and during the examination of the room, a magic stone was found on the collar of an already dead kitten in Theo's chambers. The sorcerers investigated and found out that it was a special stone that increased the amount of mana for a while, and it also meant that the thief knew that the boy was Rosetto. His goal was to provoke a release of mana. The Duke became angry. But that wasn't the last news. The stone was also given image transfer magic, so the enemy could see absolutely everything. Based on this, the enemy most likely already knows that Lania is a suitable person. Theo, meanwhile, was walking away from this whole nightmare feeling sick and dreaming of all these silhouettes in the fire. As soon as he woke up and saw Charlotte next to him, he calmed down. As soon as he woke up, he immediately hugged her and told her that he was very scared. The woman reassured him and said that everything was fine now. As soon as the baby calmed down, he immediately fell asleep, and Mrs. Lanaya felt guilty for leaving him alone. Carlyle immediately approached and reassured the girl, saying that it wasn't her fault. The man told her the bad news, namely that the enemy already knows who the right person is. Carlyle was worried about the girl and said that she might be in danger and apologized. That lady said that everything was fine because she signed the contract from the very beginning, knowing that she could be in danger. And besides, she's not some coward who runs away from incomprehensible things. Carlyle was surprised by this answer. He was very impressed by her courage and kissed her hand. He added that even though he knew what kind of person she was, he asked to be given the opportunity to protect her because he was ready to do anything for her. The senior magician said that Ian also swore an oath of allegiance to his master, so he would most likely be sick for a few days, because the spell associated with binding one's heart is quite difficult. Carlyle was worried that Theo hadn't been able to sleep for several days in a row. It seemed like he was reliving the incident over and over again. The teacher said that there is one very effective remedy, namely sealing the memory of the moment of the fire. Moreover, since memories cannot be erased artificially, the risk is small, and Carlyle thought it was a bad idea. The old man assured me that he had personally seen a similar case, so everything would be fine. He added that the memories had been sealed for more than 10 years, and no problems had arisen. After thinking a little, he realized that Roandro would not cause any harm because he had sworn allegiance to his father. He agreed and gave his approval for the ritual to be performed. Suddenly, a message from Maurice arrived on the magic ball. He said that the whereabouts of Lady Penelope O'Hane were unknown and she could not be found yet. Carlyle said that it didn't really matter, because anyone would come, preferably someone capable of defending themselves like Sir Heather. The Duke thought about it, because if he was going to send Charlotte home, he had to find a suitable person for Theo. They needed to be prepared for any unexpected situations. Suddenly, he felt very sick and grabbed his heart. But suddenly, an unknown voice told him that everything was okay and that something was next to him and would protect him. He didn't understand what kind of voice it was. He dreamed that someone was sitting on the couch. He didn't understand where these people came from. The man saw a picture of two boys talking to each other. It was him and his brother Edgar. It was all very strange, because it was the first time this had happened. The man was shocked because he started dreaming about something. Meanwhile, Lania watched over Theo. After Theo's memories were erased, it became even harder for him. The woman promised that she would be there when she needed to face fear again. Sir Ain ran into the room, immediately ran over, and put the magic stone into the girl's hands. Charlotte began to feel her own mana. And amazingly, on the day of the fire, Ain found this stone in Theo's room. Without knowing it herself, the girl managed to create a magic stone, which is strange because during practice, she also used mana, but could not create anything. Most likely when it felt Carlyle's mana, it was then that it managed to create the magic stone. Although she seemed to understand the principle, she told Aina that she had no idea how it happened. If she had provided such information, Ain would most likely have understood that Carlyle was a Rosetto. But anyway, the girl is incredibly happy because she finally successfully managed to create a magic stone. She wanted to make a bracelet with this stone for Theo. Carlyle's mana is also unstable, and she would like to make another stone, and didn't know if there was another way to do it. First, she needs to check if she really reacted this way to Carlyle's mana. Meanwhile, the Duke has fallen asleep. Amazingly, he seemed to have moved to the room he had used as a child. He saw two boys on the sofa. One of them, it's him, little Carlyle was crying, because everyone almost got hurt because of him. This seemed like a strange situation for him, because he had the feeling that he was also a Rosette. But he was constantly reassured by some other child who said he would protect him. Suddenly, in his dream, this child looked into his eyes and asked the same thing. He was frightened and woke up, after which his mana became unstable. He was forced to find Charlotte to calm him down. As soon as he takes her hand, his incredible pain will immediately stop. He went out into the corridor where Mrs. Linnea was. She saw that something was wrong with him and that he was in pain. So she immediately ran to him and his pain subsided. The man was as hot as fire. It was the result of a surge of mana. The girl took his hand and begged with all her might to calm this tsunami. Theo was very worried about him, so he immediately ran up and hugged him. Carlyle apologized for making him worry and looked much better. Suddenly, the Duke unexpectedly grabbed the girl's hand. Theo, noticing this, said that he was also holding his sister's hand to make him feel better. The girl suggested that everyone join hands. While putting his younger brother to bed, the man noticed a bracelet that Charlotte had woven with her stone because she had recently managed to make a magic stone. Lady said that thanks to him, she was able to succeed because on the day of the fire, she wanted to calm Theo and prove herself strong. But after she hugged her husband, she was able to create a stone. She wanted to try it again, so she asked for a hug if he didn't mind. Like that time, she asked to concentrate the mana on her palms. Just like that time, the girl felt warmth filling her entire body. Suddenly, a beautiful blue stone appeared between their hands, and the girl finally discovered the secret of how to make stones. Carlyle was surprised that the girl was happy, such a seemingly ordinary thing. But to get such a result, I had to spend a lot of time looking for an error. The man asked what she would use this stone for. The girl said that even though they are engaged, only she has a ring, so she wants to give him a gift in the form of a ring. Also, this ring will be suitable, not only as a disguise, it will help Carlyle stay safe. He found it funny that the girl was concerned about the Duke's safety. The girl asked not to be teased. The Duke grabbed a strand of her hair and said that if she didn't want him to tease her, then she didn't need to be so charming. He wished her a good night and said he would look forward to her gift. All this left our heroine very embarrassed. Meanwhile, my lord examined his finger and could not even imagine that he would one day wear a wedding ring. He thought that he would never wear a ring on his ring finger for the rest of his days. But the thought of Charlotte giving him one warms his soul. Suddenly, Robert rushed into Carlyle's room with urgent news. Someone from the imperial family had arrived, and Carlyle urgently needed to read the message. It was an invitation to a ball, and an order from His Imperial Majesty that he was obliged to be there. Strangely enough, the man had an ominous feeling, as if someone had set traps and was waiting for the right time. A whole meeting gathered. Aeon knocked on the table and said that it didn't make sense, because there was no imperial decree on such a minor case, and it didn't make sense. It was obvious that this was a trap, and someone really wanted him to come there. Aeon insisted on his point. He said that he couldn't go to the ball because it was a trap. The Duke's aide said he understood his feelings, but refusal would be considered disobedience to the Emperor's order. He said Chase was right, and he should be present. If they set a trap, he will fall right into it, and will be able to meet the owner of the trap. Aeon objected to this, saying it was risky. But Carlyle said that the greater the risk, the greater the chance of success. He didn't want to listen to anything else, so he ordered his assistant to prepare everything so he could leave next week. Charlotte intervened and said that in that case she would go with him. Carlyle said it was dangerous, so he refused her, and the girl replied that that was exactly why she would go with him. If the opponent has magic, she must go with him, because anything can happen, just like in competitions. Aeon agreed with the girl and said that if there was to be a magician there, then the girl was necessary. The Duke ordered the assistant and the magician to leave because he needed to talk to the girl alone. He took her by the shoulder and said that it was very dangerous, but the girl replied that she would be careful. She asked to help him, but my lord asked her to beware of two people at the ball, namely Penelope Ohan and the blue-eyed man. There is information that he is looking for her if they come to the ball together. You need to be on your guard. The man found the girl's expression unusual, and he asked if she was okay. The girl was upset because she knew what was going on. This is the same ball where Penelope and Carlyle will meet for the first time. On the day of the ball, our heroine dressed in a matching dress. Theo and Ellie were delighted because she looked like an angel. The maid added that she looked like the main character at this ball, and Theo was so impressed that he ran to hug her. Carlisle was also very elegantly dressed. Theo couldn't take his eyes off him because he was shining. The maid invited the little boy into the garden, but left the couple alone. Carlisle complimented the girl and said that Charlotte was incredibly beautiful. She replied that the Duke also looked good today. The man replied that if he looked great in her eyes, then that was a success. The lady suddenly ran somewhere asking to wait. Charlotte got her engagement ring. She wanted to give it to me earlier, and it only arrived today along with the dress. The girl put a ring on her husband's ring finger and asked him to promise that he would never take it off no matter what happened. They held hands and Carlisle promised he wouldn't take the ring off. The man asked if the girl was ready for the journey, and they held hands and headed straight into the trap. The ball was beautiful. A lot of carriages came, but you can't rest, because now is the most stressful time, because it's impossible to predict what will happen in a second. As soon as they entered the hall, their arrival was immediately announced. Everyone started discussing the couple among themselves. Many did not expect such a union, because the girl was from the village. No one could believe that Duke Heinz would marry for love. The man asked not to listen to what people said. He added that the girl could only focus on him. Without thinking twice, Lady Lania replied that she would do so. The son of the empire. His Majesty, the Emperor himself, began to speak, and everyone bowed their heads in his honor. When he ordered everyone to raise their heads, our heroine saw that something was wrong with his lordship's eyes. The emperor asked to enjoy the ball and shouted, "Glory to the empire." In response, the crowd shouted, "Glory to the emperor." Carlisle asked the girl to dance, and she agreed. Charlotte noticed that he was a great dancer and replied that there are things in life that you can learn even if you don't want to. The Duke also complimented the girl, saying that she was also a great dancer. He asked why the girl danced so well, whether she had danced much with others. The lady replied that she was just paying attention in dance lessons. Carlisle asked her to dance only with him from that moment on. Suddenly, the girl saw Penelope Ohan, and the blonde unknown woman looked just as she had been described in the carriage. It seems she went outside and Charlotte wanted to follow her. Carlisle took the blonde in, but promised that if the girl was gone for too long, he would immediately follow her. Surprisingly, Penelope was not around. Lionel Wisner approached her to get acquainted. He asked if the lady was looking for a groom she didn't even love. Carlisle found himself on the balcony, and Penelope approached him. After saying hello, the girl began to approach the man. For some reason, she also had strange eyes, as if she were looking through him. The woman approached the Duke like a zombie, wearing the same stone as the one on the cat. It was supposed to temporarily increase Carlisle's mana. She managed to touch his hand, and a whole bunch of strange thoughts began to swirl in my lord's head, as if searching for something long hidden. Suddenly, Carlisle is small, and Edgar, who has been looking for him everywhere, runs into his room. The boy was upset as always because Rosetto can use magic from the age of 5, but he's already 7 and nothing works for him. But his brother assured him that there was nothing wrong with that, because the boy was just late, and even then he would become the best magician. Taking the boy's hand, he said that he would also become the best magician, because Carlisle is a rosette, and Edgar suits him. After all this, my lord remembered that he had a twin brother who was born at the same time as him, and his childhood was so peaceful because his brother was nearby. Until one day, when he was 7 years old, Edgar was kidnapped. He saw his parents' stress and fear that Edgar, who looked just like him, had been mistaken for Carlisle and killed instead. Amazingly, the man himself killed Petrion with his own hands, and even those who survived the fire were killed by the Emperor's knights. There was no one left, and that was how it should be. The boy who had just taken revenge lay exhausted. The thief's plan could have been successful, but Carlisle didn't hesitate and touched the ring to himself. Surprisingly, the ring that Charlotte gave him glowed, and a strange glow appeared around it. Suddenly, Charlotte came running. They looked at Penelope and saw that a spell had been cast on her. That's why she was behaving so strangely. Our heroine lifted the spell, and she felt much worse. Meanwhile, Penelope Ohane lost consciousness. They decided to go to the carriage immediately. Lania saw that she was bleeding. As was known, the bracelet with the red stone was the source of the spell. When Penelope's hand grabbed his, Carlisle felt his mana begin to move. It was done to release his memories and drive him crazy. Charlotte is shocked and asks if his memories have returned. The lady started apologizing. He didn't listen to her. He just took her hands and said everything was okay. He knew she had a reason for not saying it, and he was sorry she had to go through so much pain because of him. Suddenly, Penelope woke up. She cleared her throat and asked where she was. Mrs. Linnea said that the girl was in the mansion of Duke Heinst. Carlyle wondered if the lady remembered how she had spoken to him at the ball. That woman said that she only remembered how they were preparing for the ball, and that she remembered nothing else except how Viscount Reister came to pick her up. After these words, the woman started to have a severe headache, and she couldn't say anything else. Most likely a mind control spell was placed on her. Carlyle went to call Aine. At the same time, the Duke was furious because he knew that his memories had been sealed by the elder magician himself. As soon as his memories returned, he wanted to ask about everything. The old man entered his office. Carlyle apologized for bothering him so late and needed to make sure of something. He wondered if the wizard knew the name Edgar. The man thought that the Duke found out about his brother thanks to Charlotte, but that was not the case. Carlyle grabbed the old man by the shoulder and ordered him to tell everything without mentioning Charlotte, because it was he who erased all his memories. But the sorcerer replied that he was only carrying out the will of his late father, because after Edgar's death, the Duke was completely out of his mind. He was afraid of losing Carlyle, so he ordered his memory erased. After all, after sealing the memories of Maina, peace would come and nothing would threaten the current milord. At the time, it was the best they could do for Carlyle's well-being. The Duke believed that the wizard should have told everything immediately after he accepted the title. He assures that it is because of the sorcerer and his late father that Theo is now in danger, because if he had known about Edgar and the Marchioness Petriani, his younger brother would not have been in danger. If Carlyle hadn't remembered all this through the stone, he wouldn't have guessed that any of the Petrian family were still alive. The man added that the old man couldn't justify all this and say it was for his sake. The Duke said that this time he would give the sorcerer one task so that he would decide who he served him or his father. Meanwhile, Mrs. Linnea felt very unwell, and her cough would not go away, and her chest felt incredibly heavy. The girl realized that what Teresa had warned her about was happening. She couldn't wait any longer, so she wrote a letter to Teresa. Over time, Penelope felt much better, and is grateful to the Duke and Lady Laney for their help. The man added that the doctor reported a quick improvement if the girl took medicine and walked a lot. Our heroine felt strangely as if she were wedged between the two main characters. Suddenly, the girl felt a pain in her chest and grimaced. Carlyle saw it immediately and asked if she was okay. The radio acquiesced and said she was fine. Suddenly, Charlotte asked one question. She was curious about Penelope's relationship with Viscount Reister. The girl said that she met the young man recently. It happened when her father was expanding his business. They had seen each other many times, and he had invited her to the ball even though she had doubts her father had ordered her to go with him. The couple looked at each other, and Penelope swore that she was not in a romantic relationship with that man. Carlyle apologized and added that he had urgent matters to attend to. He assured the girl that if she needed anything, she could call the servant at any time. In farewell, Carlyle touched our heroine's shoulder. Penelope saw this and said that it was very sweet to take such care of each other, because they looked like two lovebirds, and even she was envious. The lady immediately realized that Charlotte had more questions that she was uncomfortable asking in front of the Duke, so the girl gave permission to question her further. Mrs. Linnea began asking about the bracelet that Reister had given her because it had a hypnotic spell on it. Now Penelope understood why the strange person the young man had introduced her to asked to see the bracelet and grabbed her wrist. After all, immediately after that, she lost her memory and doesn't remember his name or what he looks like. Recalling the recent conversation with Carlyle and their guesses about Viscount Reister, Rosetta dissipated. The Duke was waiting outside the door of the room after the lady deer ran out of there. She said that someone else had cast the spell. Suddenly, the girl remembered that there was a guy who had stopped her when she was alone. It was Lionel Wisner. Meanwhile, the saint received a letter from the heroine. She said that she would soon appear in the possession of the Duke, so until then she needed to be careful, because the thread of fate could break at any moment. After reading this letter, the girl realized that she might die, and she became very scared, because it was not death itself that scared her, but what would remain after death. The girl thought about the fact that she didn't appreciate and didn't love as much as she could. Realizing that she had almost no time, The lady wanted to confess her feelings to Carlyle, because even if she looked at someone next to him, her heart ached. The girl opened the door to Carlyle's office without knocking, and as soon as he looked out, she said she liked him. She apologized for not saying this earlier and pretended not to notice because she was afraid that there must be someone else next to him. And she also admitted that the stupidest thing was that she kept her distance and still took steps to ensure that her husband did not forget that she was there. She didn't want to act selfishly and push him away, but they still admitted that she was probably a selfish person. Suddenly, Carlyle decided to say something he wouldn't dare say. Later, he said that the Petrian family was most likely targeting Theo because of him. After Edgar's death, he burned down the Petrian mansion, and everyone inside died. He wanted revenge for them killing his brother. And now something similar will happen, and he will not feel sorry for them. He has the blood of many people on his hands that cannot be erased. He asked if the girl would accept a person like him. The girl didn't answer and just kissed his hand. The man was surprised by this gesture, and she added that whatever happened to him, it was all over now, and she likes him the way he is. She agrees to share her difficulties and sorrows with him, so she asked him to laugh a lot and be happy together from now on. After that, the couple had a passionate kiss. They were both so elated that they seemed to fly up to the sky from emotions and pleasure. Carlyle asked to call him by his name again, because he couldn't even believe that this was happening. They kissed and confessed their love for each other. After that, he was sitting in his office, and a subordinate came running to him very quickly. He told him that the information he had requested needed to be studied urgently. It turned out that Count Wisner's deceased younger sister had an affair with Marquis Petrian, and they had an illegitimate child. He was not given the surname Petrian because he was out of wedlock, which is why they escaped death when Petrian's entire family was killed. It turns out that Viscount Reister is being helped by the Wisner family, and most likely that Lionel Wisner is using him. Carlyle happily grabbed the letter and said that he understood everything, because for Lionel Wisner, the Rister windows were just bait to keep his identity from being revealed. Because Rister was on all public escorts, and even if they came out to him, there would be no chance of catching him. Now it was clear why he wanted to attack Theo. He just wanted revenge because he wanted to feel everything that he felt. But the Duke did not want to just accept it. The man ordered Viscount Reister and Lionel Wisner to be brought at any cost. Meanwhile, the boy was hiding from the Knights of Heinst, who were already on all the streets. Most likely he understood that the Duke guessed who was who. The young man understood that if the Duke caught him, he would not let him just die. He could not just fall for them. Suddenly, a fiery charge appeared near him. The sorcerer of Heinsta was happy to meet the old man. He asked to settle the conflict without force and just leave with him. The guy was in prison. He agreed to a non-conflict solution with the magician. His face and mouth were tied up, and he himself was chained to a chair. Carlyle removed the blindfold from him and said that he had not lived up to his expectations because he thought the Viscount was smarter. The Duke asked if the magician had checked his mouth. Maurice confirmed that there was no poison in the thief's mouth that he could use to kill himself. After the gag was ordered to be removed, the Viscount began to beg for mercy, promising to tell everything. Milord didn't want explanations. He already understood everything and why he had done it. Carlyle asked directly where Lionel Wisner was now, and he said he didn't know because he was contacting him himself. The Duke did not want to listen to these excuses and stabbed him, ordering him to speak immediately if he wanted to keep his other hand. Carlyle said that in that case, they had no choice but to wait for the wizard to contact him himself. Maurice also wondered what kind of spell had been cast on His Majesty. The detainee said he didn't know for sure, but before he could finish the sentence, he suddenly died. Unexpectedly, a spell of secrecy had been placed on him. Carlyle was so angry about all this that he could no longer accept his inner anger. Meanwhile, Lanya was reading a fairy tale about Toto coming out of the cave, because problems will not be solved in the cave. It was after these words that Theo fell asleep. Lanaya looked at the boy. She wanted to read fairy tales to him like that every day, and understood that her time would soon end. She promised that she would protect him as long as she could. Carlyle quickly ran to Theo's room and asked if he was the reason she was here, but the lady replied that she just hadn't gone to bed yet. She touched my lord's face and said that he looked tortured. She added that she was worried that the man would not overwork himself. A smile appeared on his face. He took her hand and said that everything was fine with him. He added that he had learned that Saint Teresa had visited them today and wanted to know the reason for her arrival. The girl thought for a long time and finally dared to tell her about Teresa coming to see her. The lady said that every time she uses her power, her body weakens. The saint noticed this recently and ordered no more use of force, and she wanted to protect Theo and Carlyle and solve the problem they were facing. But she overdid it, and it was very unfortunate. She began to apologize to Carlyle and hugged her husband tightly. Milord said it was his fault, and he should have taken more care of her. The man asked if she was okay now, and the girl replied that everything was not that bad, and that if she used force again, she would feel much worse. But if necessary, she will use force for that. Carlyle held the girl's hand to his face and told her not to hide anything from him and to tell him everything like she did today. After all, he wants to do everything with her, the girl agreed. The man ordered Charlotte to go to bed, and he would stay with her until she fell asleep. While in bed, Linnea said that the saint would help lift the spell from His Majesty. Carlyle was delighted and said that he would accompany the saint to the castle, but the girl must stay in the mansion. Charlotte was angry because just now, the boy said that he wanted them to do everything together, and now he orders her to stay at home. The man said that she didn't even know how much his heart was trembling right now, because they had been lying like this before. Only at those moments, he couldn't look directly at her. Now everything is completely different. His heart is beating so fast, and now he won't run away like a fool. Milord approached Lady Linnea and asked if he could kiss her. The girl approached herself and they kissed again. Carlyle asked if she would mind getting officially engaged when it was all over, and she agreed. Suddenly, the little boy said something in his sleep, and the couple got scared. Seeing that the boy was just sleeping, they laughed out loud at his mumbling in his sleep. When escorting Mrs. Teresa, the castle seemed quite empty. Usually there are guards near the throne room, but here they are not even visible. The saint herself also noticed something strange in the situation. Carlyle introduced himself to His Majesty. But before he could even properly introduce himself, His Majesty ordered the man to be arrested. He added that the traitor would be immediately punished and executed. The Lord thought that Carlyle wanted to burn down the ballroom, and he came here to disturb the imperial castle again. The Duke understood that the Emperor's mind was being controlled by other people, and made to think that he was plotting treason. He needed the saint's immediate help. She approached the Emperor, but he did not understand why the woman came with a traitor. The saint said that most likely the Emperor was confused about the fact that the Duke was a traitor, and began the process of cleansing the castle of the evil energy. This began to take effect, and the negative mana that had enveloped everyone present in the castle began to dissipate. Suddenly, the Emperor came to his senses and asked why they were here. He did not understand why the guards had detained the Duke and ordered his immediate release. The Emperor was extremely surprised and did not understand what was happening. Carlyle promised to explain absolutely everything in the most interesting details. Upon learning about Lionel Wisner and the mind control spell, the man became very angry. Now he understood why he needed an audience. He also learned that it was he who had put the Crown Prince in danger during the tournament. This was all tantamount to treason, so he ordered Lionel Wisner to be arrested at that very moment because he would pay for his crimes. Carlyle asked to be personally punished for the crimes he had committed. Charlotte and Theo were sleeping in their rooms. Carlyle went to them and asked if they were okay. While Theo slept, the couple decided to talk outside. She exchanged it with all her might and asked why it took so long, because she was very worried. Her lover replied that he was not injured and had returned strong, so she had nothing to worry about. His Majesty has been freed from the mind control spell placed on him and has given him the right to personally execute Lionel Wisner. And the problem is that they can't find him. Judging by the way Viscount Rister died for Lionel, people are just expendable material on the way to achieving his goal. He will do anything to educate him and Theo. Suddenly, a wonderful idea came to Charlotte's head. Since he would come anywhere to harm them, he could use their engagement as bait. And they went to the ball knowing it was a trap, and Lionel Wisner would do the same. They wanted to finish off the enemy at their engagement ceremony. Suddenly, while playing in the sand, Theo wondered what engagement was. The couple was surprised and asked where he had heard that word. The boy said that Emma had confessed that her sister and brother were engaged and that there would be a party soon, and in his opinion, if there was a party soon, then the engagement was a good thing. Carlyle replied that it was good, and he and Mrs. Linnea promised to be with each other forever. The kid was very happy, because it meant that his sister would be with them forever. Milord asked if Count Jack and Isaac would be present tomorrow. Charlotte replied that it was true, because Jack was already very upset, and it was strange that she did not invite her family to the engagement. Carlyle said that it was better to tell the family the truth, because they were very worried that their engagement was fake. He thinks it would be right to tell everything as it is, because he wants them to treat him well. Hearing this, the girl smiled and blushed a little. Leaning against her husband's shoulder, she said that she would try to make them treat him better. As soon as Jake arrived, he started yelling at the girl, saying that she didn't understand what he was thinking, because she wasn't inviting them or her parents to the engagement party. And to them it seemed like nonsense. But Charlotte told him to calm down and listen to her, because she wasn't inviting her family to the engagement, because the brothers stopped understanding the girl even more, and she promised to explain everything. After telling everything that had happened, including how Theo was attacked by assassins, what had happened at the tournament, and the fire in Theo's room, the brothers' faces turned very pale. Jake ordered the engagement to be called off immediately, as it was very dangerous. Jake could not calm down and said that it was dangerous and that this could not be allowed. Isaac calmed him down. He added that, in that case, they would not interfere with their plans. But still, they wanted to help somehow. And the girl said that this was a matter for the Heinz family and had nothing to do with them. But Jake shouted that the girl was in danger now, and it had a direct bearing on them. But the girl replied that it wasn't, and they didn't need to interfere. After all, they themselves don't know who Lionel Wiesner is and what he's capable of, so the girl doesn't want her brothers to be in danger because of her. After listening to his sister, Isaac said that the situation was indeed difficult, but agreed that they should not come. Jake started to get angry again about this, but Isaac put down the mug and said that they would wait for her outside without being at the ceremony, and if anything happened, they would be able to get her out, and he sincerely hoped that wouldn't happen. Finally, he added that if she felt in danger, she should use her favorite method to protect herself and even call her brothers, and then they would protect her. Charlotte smiled and said she would do as he said and hugged her brothers. Standing on the balcony, our heroine thought about it, because tomorrow is her engagement and she doesn't even want to sleep because of the worries. She knew she wouldn't be able to calm down until she was with Carlyle, but suddenly she was visited by the holidays. She apologized for scaring the girl. She said that she was so worried about her, so she came to give another blessing. The woman asked if the Duke would be angry because she had come without warning. But our heroine replied that there would be nothing wrong with that. Teresa asked not to use force at tomorrow's ceremony, and it was clear that she would not listen to her. Miss Linnea apologized to her and said that if the situation was dangerous, she would have no choice but to use her power, even if it was dangerous for her life.